Born Free, Blood Rose Nights Book 5, written by Keary Taylor, narrated by Raven Wildwood. Chapter 1. Brother. That word slams against my brain with the force of a full freight train bound for the West Coast at top speed. I've been looking for you for a long time. I look into the face of the man standing at the base of the stairs to the nocturne. Sharp features, wild black hair, vivid blue eyes. Shit, shit, shit. I could count the number of times I've seen you speechless on one hand, the man says. There's a coy smile on his lips, something dangerous and conniving. But there's also surprise and confusion. 24 years apart, and you don't have a single word for me? The audience, which is the entire vampire and gifted population of Chicago, several hundred people, wait with bated breath at the entry to the nocturne. I know each of their eyes is fixated on that crown in the man's hand, and every one of them is terrified of what it means. Sounds like we need to talk, Roman says. His poker face is a lot better than mine would be. He's not giving anything away, not the fact that he has no damn idea who this man is that just called him brother, not the fact that he doesn't know why the man just tried to offer him a crown. But not here. The man steps forward without hesitating, his entire crew of 7 moving with him. Up the stairs, I see Elena and Mason step forward. Something big is about to happen, and as council members, surely they should be involved. But subtly, Roman shakes his head no. It's a clear message to stay. When Roman's eyes slide over to me, I see it there. He wants me to stay too, to leave whatever mess this is to him. But like the stubborn pain in the ass I am, I take his hand, and there's not a chance on this earth that anyone would be able to pry us apart, human or vampire. I'm not letting Roman go anywhere with these people alone. He squeezes my hand, and it's not a reassuring squeeze. It's a why are you so damn stubborn squeeze. We all turn from the scene at the nocturne. The night has taken some insane twists and turns. Just half an hour ago, I was being introduced to the population as the newest council member, Roman singing my praises as the one who saved them all. Then, Elena was telling me I was in love with Roman. In a confused panic, I'd fled the building. Roman had come after me, and things got deep, heavy, until a stranger said Orlando needed a word. The man ended up dead. Oops. And then, holy shit, Roman was confessing his feelings, and then I don't even know who started it, but suddenly our lips and hands were all over each other. It was the most earth-shaking kiss I'd ever had in my life. And now we have a pack of vampires following a few paces behind us, and one of them is calling Roman brother. Only Roman doesn't remember who he was before he resurrected. He woke up in a landfill, brutally murdered, stabbed in the back. He couldn't remember where he was from, who his family was. He doesn't even know his real name. Where? I whisper as quietly as I can. Can we go to your apartment? He asks in barely audible words. I nod. It seems odd for half a second, but I realize almost immediately that there's nowhere else that would be safe. The entire goal of being here in Chicago is to keep this place a secret, to keep it safe. It's a mecca for the gifted and those who want to stay out of the royal system. We can't go to the club. Yes, it's closed, because basically every vampire in the city was at my introduction party. But the moment any vampire walks in, they'll smell just how many other vampires frequent the place. We don't need any red flags right now. We can't go to Roman's secret church. All the security systems will draw questions. Obviously, we had to get away from the nocturne as fast as possible. Even Godfrey Tower smells like dozens and dozens of vampires. Hell, the hospital is even full of vampires. Literally, the only place that doesn't put us in question is my apartment. So, With my hand firmly gripped around Roman's, we walk swiftly in the direction of my apartment.
Of all the places you could choose to spend your winters, you choose Chicago,
the man says. Considering he seems to be the one in charge, I have to assume this is Orlando. What, you don't like the negative temperatures and the sideways wind? I ask sarcastically. I'm trying to divert attention away from Roman as long as I can. I'm trying to give him even just a few more seconds to think through what's about to happen.
I think I prefer the house on the beach,
he says. I look over my shoulder at him, only to see his eyes dropping down the length of me, clearly studying my ass in this golden dress that feels like it's made out of water. We turn the last corner and go straight for my doors. Crossing to the elevator, I look back at the group. This thing can only handle 4 people at a time. 32nd floor. The doors open then, and Roman and I step inside, followed by Orlando and another man.
From the looks of things, you're someone important to my brother,
he says. He's still shamelessly studying me, all the way down the deep V in the front that plunges nearly to my belly button. Roman growls, and Orlando smirks at the immediate confirmation.
Seems an introduction is worth our time.
I just can't help it. One of my brows raises, and I know I'm giving him a you can't be serious look.
This one is easy to offend,
Orlando remarks, raising an eyebrow of his own. I'm definitely not a fan of condescending assholes who put their noses where they don't belong. This damn mouth of mine is going to keep getting me in trouble for my long, entirely immortal life. The man standing beside Orlando growls and steps forward. Roman's other hand immediately snaps forward, palm flat to the man's chest, shoving him back. His back hits the wall of the elevator, and we all jerk sideways as the rickety box rises.
Nessun deno previsto,
Orlando says, and shit, I don't know what that means, but I'm already learning to hate that smile of his.
I simply wanted to be introduced to my brother's very tempting girlfriend.
Goosebumps race up my spine, all the way over my scalp at that word. I'm no one's girlfriend. Up until 30 minutes ago, I had no idea Roman was anything more to me than my best friend. My name is Juliet Doe, I say, asserting myself, standing to my full height, all 5'3" of it. Dr. Juliet Doe.
Well done,
Orlando says, arching an eyebrow at Roman. The elevator dings, and the doors slide open. We step out into the hall and aim toward my door.
Now that you've got the endgame girl, can I assume you produced a few pups before settling down?
Cold fire rips through me at his words. I hate this. I hate that this is something every woman in the world goes through. The fact that their worth is so often tied to the ability to produce offspring. I was never good enough for Mason, because as soon as I died and resurrected as a vampire, I couldn't have kids. It was a huge contributing factor that led to our never being able to be together.
Shut your mouth,
Roman growls as I unlock my door and push it open.
Juliet is right. You need to keep your nose where it belongs. Pretty sure ensuring the lasting legacy of our house is my business,
Orlando says as he steps inside. I feel cold sweat race across my palms. That was about the last word I wanted to hear come out of Orlando's mouth. The other man steps inside, and I close and lock the door behind us. The others can wait outside, as far as I'm concerned. Orlando walks into my apartment, taking it all in with eyes that are far too observant. While he doesn't have the same scary security vibe Roman does, I can tell he still makes it a point to know his surroundings. Finally, he turns in the middle of my living room.
How rude of me. I haven't even introduced us yet. This is Javier,
he says, indicating the man standing poised and ready beside him.
My name is Orlando Badillo. I'm Andreas's brother.
This night is messing with my head. Andres Badillo. I'm the only person in his life that knows Roman's biggest secret. that he doesn't remember anything from before his resurrection, not even his own name. Yet, Orlando has dropped it on us like it isn't earth-shifting news for Roman. My eyes immediately flick over to him, studying his reaction. Roman gives none. I'm not so sure it's nice to meet you yet, but, I shrug. It's what you're supposed to say. I shake Orlando's outstretched hand. He smiles again, a dangerous, sly thing.
I like her, Andres, and it doesn't surprise me one bit you ended up with her. But I don't see rings on any fingers. What's the holdup?
You like beating around the bush and making things awkward, don't you? I can't help but call him out. He grins again, almost pleased at my candor.
Just feeling out the situation. From the way you two are acting, I'd guess what's going on between you is new?
Damn, I don't like his ability to read the truth this easily.
So, am I not supposed to ask why the hell you're shirtless in the middle of winter, brother?
Orlando moves on.
Why there's blood on your back? And why Antonio is suddenly missing? You said you needed to speak to me,
Roman says, entirely ignoring Orlando's question. Though, from the look in Orlando's eyes, he knows exactly what befell Antonio, why Roman is shirtless and bloody.
Tell me what it is you want, so we can get you on your way as soon as possible.
Orlando's eyes darken with offense, sliding to meet the twins to his own vivid blue eyes. He stands there, evaluating, cold, contempt radiating off of him, for a solid 60 seconds. Finally, he turns abruptly and walks to the living room. Javier follows after him, putting himself between Orlando and Roman. Orlando takes a seat in one of the white chairs in my living room. There's something about the way he sits, the way he takes up every bit of space in it, his arms stretched out along the armrests. He isn't sitting with any insanely perfect posture. In fact, he looks quite relaxed. But the way he sits, you'd think that chair was a throne.
Why don't you sit, brother, and we can speak civilly,
he says, not an invitation. No one, absolutely no one, tells Roman what to do. So I take the lead. I walk into the living room, which makes Roman move as my shadow. I sink down onto the green velvet couch and, nearly glued to my entire side, wound as tight as a spring, Roman sits beside me. The man accompanying Orlando chooses to stand, positioned to defend Orlando in a second. Bodyguard, then, an extremely loyal one. Orlando's eyes fix on Roman, and another 30 seconds of evaluation pass without anyone saying a word. I feel the tension building in the room. I feel the danger becoming real, one ticking second at a time.
You don't remember a damn thing, do you?
Orlando says, so casual and simple, a statement of fact. My face goes cold. Damn, we are going to have to be so careful around this man.
What makes you say that?
Roman asks, playing it cool and casual, though serious as the grave. A smile pulls on the left side of Orlando's mouth. He shakes his head, a sign of disbelief.
We might not have seen each other in 24 years, Andres, but we were brothers for 26 years before that. After our last interaction, after the way we left things.
He shakes his head.
You're a man of war, Andres. There's no way you would leave me with all my limbs, even if it was just over a woman.
The hair on my body stands on end. I'd once asked Roman if he'd ever been in love. He'd told me no, not that he could remember. But there's the simple fact. Roman did indeed have a life before he resurrected. I have no right to get jealous and ragey about the possibility that he had someone before. We have no claim to each other. We're in a confused limbo of unspoken feelings and have done nothing but kiss for a few minutes.
What was our mother's name?
Orlando asks, those blue eyes fixed on Roman. It's a test. Roman doesn't say anything, only holding his long-lost brother's gaze.
What house did father try to marry you to?
Orlando asks next. Still, Roman says nothing. My heart is beating so fast. I don't know what all this means. I don't know how all of this is going to change the future. I don't know what kind of danger this is going to put Roman in. I feel as if we're playing a game of chess with a deadly viper, except Roman is completely blindfolded.
Do you even know what country you were born in?
Orlando asks, one brow arching just slightly. Roman can't even answer that question. He's told me he speaks Spanish and Italian just as well as he does English. But there are a lot of countries that speak Spanish. Spain, or almost the entirety of Central and South America.
Had I not said the name Andres Badillo, would you have even known your real name?
Orlando asks, his tone indicating this is the final question, the one that nails the coffin shut. Still, Roman doesn't say a word. Roman isn't one for a lot of words. He's more the broody type. But it's disorienting to see him so quiet. I can't even imagine how he must be feeling right now.
I'd ask you where you were when you resurrected, but I have a feeling you wouldn't tell me.
Orlando continues.
You were being secretive when you last left the house. We all knew you had something up your sleeve.
Roman woke up in a landfill in Mississippi. He'd been stabbed in the back. And considering the complete amnesia, he'd taken a massive blow to the head a while before he died. Roman died an extremely violent death.
You were born to Raul and Valentina Badillo.
Orlando begins.
Our father had led the house in Spain for 2 centuries before he met Mother. Do you at least know about the house system and the royals?
I'm actually relieved he's being direct. No more beating around the bush. Can we trust that this man, a stranger, is telling the truth? It's undeniable they share blood. But even Orlando has admitted things were bad between them when they last saw each other. I know about the houses and the royals, Roman answers darkly. Orlando nods.
Mother came from a formidable family in Italy, one of the oldest and most powerful born there is, though not royal. They fell in love, married, and 2 years later you were born, their precious Andres, heir to the house.
My eyes slide closed. Roman never knew who he was. And as it turns out, he's a freaking royal, the embodiment of what we're hiding from here in Chicago. Heir to the system we're trying to stay out from under.
I came along 4 years later, and circumstances were even better when our sister was born only a year after me. We were one happy, perfect family for 3 years. Sophia drowned in the pool out back. King Cyrus was livid.
For a moment, I can't figure out why the king of the vampires would be angry about a little girl dying. Tragic, but... And then I remember that his constantly dying and resurrecting wife is reborn into the royal lines. He's constantly monitoring the female royals in case one of them turns out to be her.
Is this ringing any bells?
Orlando asks, his gaze inquisitive and curious. Roman's silence is his answer.
The house of Badillo is known for our skill in warfare.
Orlando moves on.
Has been since its founding in the 3rd century. We were trained extensively. I assume those skills at least haven't disappeared from your muscle memory.
Definitely not. This is the only part of this conversation that hasn't shocked me. Roman is as deadly as they come, plus 10. I must shake my head just slightly because Orlando's eyes slide to me for a moment.
Father was training you, grooming you to be his heir. Not that he planned on dying, ever. But in this world, well, one must always have a contingency plan in place.
Did Roman want that throne? What kind of leader was he going to be? The goosebumps on my arms make me unsure if who he was in that previous life was the same kind of man I accidentally fell in love with.
We may have resented one another,
Orlando says with a smirk.
I was seen as the spare, unneeded unless the worst were to happen. You saw me as a threat, thought I was always after your crown. I saw you as a dictator who would always be over me. Let's just say our home was not a peaceful one.
And this is exactly why Chicago is the way it is. There are far too many politics in the royal system. War, bloodshed, backstabbing. Who wants to be under that thumb? We have a few rules in Chicago, but at least our leaders aren't born into it. We earn it.
If we hated each other so much, why come find me?
Roman asks.
I don't think I even have to ask if Raoul is still alive. He ticked off the king 19 years ago,
Orlando says, far too casually.
Cyrus decapitated him and left his head in the streets for the children to play with.
Damn. The more I hear about this insane king, the more I vow to stay out of trouble. Well, I'll try.
So, with my disappearance, you're the leader of the House of Badillo.
Roman continues.
You have power, money, influence. You're years established as the ruler. Why the hell would you actively come looking for me? How can I be anything but a threat to you? You were always direct, Andreas,
Orlando says, a small smile pulling his lips thin.
No one ever had to question where you stood on anything. At least some things weren't lost. That isn't an answer,
Roman says darkly.
Always so suspicious, he says.
He pulls a pack of cigarettes from his pocket, removes one from the carton, and twirls it between his fingers. Don't you dare light that in my home, I say, my voice coming out colder than I expect. My nerves are on edge, ready to break apart at just the wrong move. Orlando smirks. He continues twirling the cigarette, but doesn't light it.
It's been decades, Andres. You're all I have left. Don't you think reconciliation is called for after all this time? Bullshit,
Roman calls him out.
Again, I'm nothing but a threat to you.
Orlando grins. And it's not what I expect when he stands, still twirling that cigarette.
All in due time, brother. And with any luck, you will remember. And then you can tell me what the hell happened to you. For now.
He takes 3 steps toward the door, Javier right behind him.
It's been a damn long flight. We're all staying at the Carmon. I'd like to spend some time tomorrow getting to know the current you and your snarky girlfriend.
I should take snarky over bitchy, which is what I've often got in the past, but I feel a sharp comment on the tip of my tongue, and I was never very good about holding myself back. It's usually polite to ask with a please when addressing your elders. Orlando looks back over his shoulder, a cold, dark look in his blue eyes. No longer does he wear a smirk. His lips thin, and he hesitates. But it only lasts a moment. He pulls the front door open, steps out, his bodyguard at his side, and closes the door behind him.
Damn it, Juliet,
Roman says, letting out a breath as if he's been holding it in.
No wonder Sebastian lost his shit. I wouldn't have let him lay a finger on you, but are you just looking to piss off every important person you come in contact with?
That guy is an asshole, I say as I stand. Automatically, I start pacing. And dangerous, and a shit stirrer. Did you see that smirk on his face?
You don't have to rise to every taunt,
Roman says, his tone dark. But there's no real reprimand in his voice. Roman knows exactly how I am. He knows it's a battle he'd never win, and for the most part, he's never seemed to have an interest in fighting it. His head falls back, those blue eyes staring up at the cracked ceiling.
This is bad, Juliet.
My fingers rise to lace into my hair. It's a mess now, thanks to the insanity of the night. No longer is it in the low bun the stylist took an entire hour to perfect. It falls around my face in crazed waves. Roman, I pace faster. You're a royal. You're. I shake my head in total disbelief. You're the freaking rightful heir to a house. And you're. I suddenly stop, my eyes snapping to him, though he's still staring at the ceiling. Your real name is Andreas. That snaps his head back up, his eyes instantly meeting mine.
Don't call me that. That is not my name.
He and I stare at one another, each of us completely overwhelmed by the events the night has unfolded. And the sun hasn't even come up. I need out of this dress, I blurt, because suddenly I feel like I can't breathe. The tightness of the bodice is restricting my breathing, the speed of which is accelerating by the moment. Get me out of this dress. I don't really realize what I've asked until I feel the heat of Roman's breath against the back of my neck. And then I remember all the things he said after he took a stake for me, even though he knew I'd just come back.
If I have to watch you die in front of me one more time, I'm pretty sure it will break something in me. You are everything, Juliet, and I'll throw myself in front of 1,000 stakes, so long as it means I never have to watch the light die in your eyes again.
I am hyper-aware of his hand as it grabs the zipper, as he slides it down. The speed of his breath increases slightly. I hear his heart beating, and its pace is rising. Lower and lower the zipper descends. He hesitates when it's down all the way. His breath is shaky. My hands go to my chest, holding the thin fabric in place so it doesn't fall and expose me entirely. I can still hardly breathe, but it's no longer due to the dress. I'll be right back. My limbs feel stiff and uncoordinated as I gather every bit of strength I have to take a step away from him. And once the second is managed, I pick up my speed. I drop the torn dress onto the floor of my closet and peel off my sticky bra. I rummage through my drawers until I find an oversized t-shirt. My hands feel like they should be shaking when I walk back through my closet and into the bedroom, but these vampire instincts of mine keep them still. My heart is clear up in my throat when I walk out into the living room once more, and I look at him once again. Roman stands in the middle of the room, unmoved from where I left him. I take him in from head to toe. His pants are dirty, and his shoes are scuffed. His shirt and tuxedo jacket are gone, ripped to shreds after he was staked, though thankfully not in the heart. He's dirtied. There's blood all over his back. The claw marks that were on his face are fully healed now, but his hair, which is always untamed, is more wild than usual. I realize that is my fault. I think we're supposed to talk about what happened, before an actual royal tried to hand you a crown, I say, feeling awkward and nervous.
Things might get messy if we do,
Roman says. His eyes slowly drop down the length of me. And I realize it's not the first time they've done that. I was just completely ignorant of what it meant until tonight. Oh, it's definitely going to get messy, I say, shaking my head. Once again, my hands rise to tangle into my hair. The motion causes my t-shirt to rise, and I know my black underwear must be showing, but I'm so beyond caring about something so small. I feel like a damn mess, Roman. I spent 8 weeks living in a fantasy of ignoring reality and responsibility, and then I truly thought I'd found my other half when Sebastian and I connected, and that exploded in all our faces. Roman, you... I shake my head, and I feel at a complete loss for words. My heart is beating so hard, so forceful as I stare into those blue eyes. Roman, you... Those 2 words are entire statements on their own. I don't know what they mean. I don't know where things go from here. But I know those 2 words are filling up my entire being right now. He stares at me, and I can see the turmoil in his eyes. He's staring at me so intensely. He shakes his head.
I've never met anyone who makes me feel as complicated as you do, Juliet. One minute I'm frustrated and annoyed and pretty sure life will move on when you get yourself killed. And then the next, I think I'm going to suffocate when you're just a few blocks away. And I miss that smart mouth and your complete insanity.
He's breathing hard, his bare chest rising and falling rapidly.
You're making me feel absolutely crazy, Juliet.
Something bites the back of my eyes, but I swear on my mother's lost ashes, I won't let myself cry, because no words have ever made me feel so perfect and seen. You surprised the hell out of me, I admit. I thought I hated you and that you were a terrifying asshole, and then you were the only person I could be totally honest with. And suddenly, I realized you are my best friend. And now, it's my turn to shake my head. This night has been so damn confusing.
I'm not asking anything from you,
Roman says, his voice soft and breathy. We stare at each other, each at a loss for words, each unsure of what happens next.
But I know, over the last 2 months, you've somehow become the most important thing to me in this whole damn world.
I feel like I'm dying and being reborn all at the same time. I'm filling and shattering all at once. I feel like I've messed up too many relationships. There's no way I deserve a third chance. Roman steps forward, and even though there are only 6 inches between us, he doesn't touch me. He just stares into my eyes.
If it takes me the rest of my immortal life, someday I'm going to make you see yourself the way you really are. You deserve anything you want, Juliet. Forget what anyone might think of you. Quit denying yourself the happiness you've worked so damn hard for.
I can hardly catch my breath. I blink twice, feeling completely overwhelmed and scared. My insides feel like an earthquake. Roman, I don't know if I'm ready for another relationship. My heart's been beaten and bruised too many times since I came to Chicago. I see something sinking in Roman's eyes. I can feel the pain of rejection radiating off of his very skin. I raise a hand and cup his cheek. And the connection. Instantly, I'm back on that table, Roman's weight atop me, his lips on my lips. And there's a peace that fills me. I don't know if I'm ready for a definition, but please don't leave me, Roman. I can't catch my breath when we're apart. His large, rough hand comes to the side of my neck. His thumb brushes over my lips. And where once I thought Roman was evil and cruel, I see tenderness. I see vulnerability. I see the person I trust more than any other person on this planet.
Never,
he promises. I rise onto the balls of my feet, and everything in the world feels as if it falls into its rightful place when our lips meet. The kiss is gentle, tender, so opposite to our frantic, chaotic first. This one tastes like security and the future. This one feels like home. Roman touches his forehead to mine, both of our eyes closing. It feels like a prayer. Both of us breathing in deeply, sharing the same air. There is no definition, because in reality, neither of us is ready. But I feel it in my bones, that Roman and I are on the same path. We're side by side, equal for equal. And in his touch, in the energy that's coming from his very being, I feel he is on the exact same page. My entire universe is shifting, evolving to something new every few seconds. We need to fill in the others, I say. Nothing in me wants to break this moment, but I still feel an urgency in my gut, one that says the world is about to change, rapidly, once again. Tonight. Roman nods, standing straight.
We're going to be followed. I can guarantee we'll be watched. So it needs to be somewhere neutral, but as private as we can get.
I nod. I'm sure Elena will know of somewhere. I'll text the council and John. I retrieve my phone from where I dropped my bag. Big shit going down. We need to meet. Not the Nocturne, not anyone's house. No somewhere private. 60 seconds later, an address comes through with a time to meet in 30 minutes. Okay, obviously I need a shower, I say, holding my hands out. They're covered in blood. Give me 5 minutes and then we can go to your place? Roman nods. Thank goodness for vampire speed. I never could get ready this fast as a human. But I get showered, hair washed and everything, and changed into clean clothes in just the right amount of time. Ready? I ask as I step out of my bedroom. Roman nods and crosses to the door. He pulls it open, looking up and down the hall. No signs of royal house members. We walk out, and I lock my door behind us. Chapter 2. We're a ridiculous sight. I'm walking around in the 30-degree pre-dawn light with wet hair. Roman isn't wearing a shirt at all. Thankfully, the streets are quiet, and we reach the club in just a few minutes. I pace in Roman's living room while he showers. It's still only half repaired from when Sebastian trashed it, and then the police turned it upside down, gathering evidence to put Roman in jail for Sebastian's disappearance. My heart is hammering. A lot needs to come to light in the next hour or two. I'm about to meet with the people closest to me in this world. I made a promise to myself that I would tell Elena and Mason everything. I've hid so much from them. Guess tonight is the night to come clean with it all. But there is one gray area that doesn't just involve me. Roman steps out after just 4 minutes. He is, of course, dressed in all black, head to toe. We step out, locking doors behind us, and set out down the sidewalk. So, just a heads up, I begin as we walk at a quick clip. I'm planning to finally tell Elena and Mason everything, and fill in Sigrid and John on the parts I've held back. All of it? Roman asks, his eyes fixed in front of us. Yeah, all of it, I confirm. My nerves are making my stomach feel weird. It's been a day. And just because of how I reacted after our last conversation, I know Elena's going to be asking, what do I tell her about us? I don't know what you're talking about, Roman says simply. Oh boy, I let out a hard breath. Well, I've been honest with Roman about everything else. Better to keep this good habit going. When me and Elena were dancing at the party, she told me I'm in love with you. Vampires don't trip. I would think that's what happened, even though it's so small, but I know this as a fact. Roman hesitates, just a second, but it's entirely noticeable. Yeah, I say, cringing just a little. I kind of freaked out, like nearly blacked out. That's why I ran out of the nocturne. I really needed some air. Guess I never actually asked why you were outside, Roman says, his tone a little off, a little uncertain. That explains why you were talking crazy. Yep, I answer. So, circling back around, Elena knows she triggered my panic. She saw me literally run away from her unexpected statement. And then you and I disappeared for like 30 minutes. You came back shirtless. We both came back with messy hair. Elena's a smart woman. So, what do we tell them all? Roman lets out a sigh, and then a swarm of butterflies explodes in my torso when he reaches out and his fingers interlace with mine. I think it's nobody's damn business, but we know for a fact that all 4 of them are nosy. I'll go with whatever you want to say. I don't know what to say, even to myself. Part of me wants to panic and demand he be the one who takes charge and decides. But I'm trying to step up for myself. I'm trying to lean into my own authority and trust myself. We tell them the honest truth, that we're figuring things out, but it's really damn complicated. He gives my hand a gentle squeeze. Whatever you want. He's in no rush. Elena said those words, and now I have to think on them. She acted like she'd known Roman had feelings for me for a long time. Were there signs? Because honestly, until he saved me from my own engagement party, I truly thought Roman hated me. When did things change? Is it possible that Roman really was patiently waiting for me? I can only hold so much for one night. I shake that thought out of my head and focus on one crisis at a time. The address Elena gave us is to a skyscraper 3 blocks from Godfrey Tower. I notice Roman subtly casing the area as we travel, searching for house members spying on us. I'm sure they're here. But we slip into the building and enter the elevator, pressing the button for the 22nd floor. It would be hard to follow someone in a skyscraper if you don't know exactly what floor they're going to. Just as the doors open, I release Roman's hand, and instantly, the world feels a little less secure. We step out into a restaurant that looks like it was built for billionaires only. The place drips money. And it's entirely empty, except for one table by the windows and one server who walks away from it. Sigrid, John, Elena, and Mason are already waiting. Every one of them has already changed as well, though each looks like they're hanging on to reality by their last nerve. I hope you can tell us what the hell is going on, because I'm about to have a full-on freak-out, Elena says, her eyes wide with panic. I'm not sure I've ever seen her look so frazzled. Roman pulls my chair out for me, and I know not a single one of the other occupants of this table misses it. I take my seat, Roman sinking into the one next to me. I did some calling around, John says. There's an edge to his voice. He knows the danger of this world. He's by far and wide the most experienced of us all when it comes to the vampire world. That man was an actual royal, Orlando Badillo, of the House of Badillo in Spain. Roman nods. He keeps his hands folded on the table, his intense eyes sweeping from one council member to the next, to John, who we might as well elect now because he has so much more knowledge than the rest of us. That was Orlando Badillo, and those were his house members. What the hell are they doing in Chicago, and why were they looking for you, Roman? Mason asks. He's always so calm, so even, so caring, but he's scared. This is exactly what Chicago is trying to stay out of. I notice Sigrid studying Roman's face, a reflective expression on her own, and I know she alone is piecing the truth together. Roman takes 5 deep, drawn-out breaths through his nose. Beneath the table, his knee bounces up and down. Roman held this secret on his own for 24 years. He never told a soul that he didn't remember his life before his resurrection, not until he told me. But he can't tell them all the truth, which is vital to our survival right now, without telling them this too. Before I came to Chicago 21 years ago, I traveled around a bit with the only other vampire I knew of. When I resurrected, I had no idea there were others like me. I reach across and place a hand on Roman's knee. I can hear the way his heart is racing. I can smell the change of emotion from him. Nerves, fear, uncertainty. Roman's hand covers mine, and his knee stops bouncing. I'm sure the others can tell what is going on beneath the table, but I don't care. When I resurrected, I woke up in a landfill, Roman says, his voice sounding thick. From the blood all over me, from the shredded state of my clothes, it was clear I died a very violent death, and I was stabbed in the back as the final blow. I hate imagining it. Roman walking alone in a literal garbage heap, covered in dried blood. But the worst of it is coming. I couldn't remember anything, Roman says. His eyes are fixed on the table. I should be curious to see the reactions of the other 4, but I can't take my eyes off Roman. Not how I'd gotten there, not if I was from that area. I didn't even know my own damn name. Sigrid mutters a curse in Norwegian. Mason leans back in his seat, taking in a deep breath. There was a passport in my pocket that had the name Roman DeLuca, so of course I assumed it was my name. Roman continues.
I later learned it was a fake. Roman DeLuca didn't actually exist, though the passport was good enough to buy me into the name. I searched for the truth of who I was for a few years, but nothing ever came of it. So I let it go, and I moved into the life I've built.
We've known you for as long as we can remember, and this whole time, you never knew who you actually were before? Elena asks. She's never been one to beat around the bush. Did our dad know? Roman shakes his head.
He prodded at my past, but I kept things vague. I never told anyone. Not until I told Juliet last year.
I see all 4 sets of eyes slide over to me. But Roman's part of the story isn't over.
I woke up in a landfill in Mississippi, just an hour away from the house based there.
John curses this time.
You tangled with that massive mess in Mississippi. Roman, do you understand what is happening there? Their actual royal rejected the house system, and they've got some imposter posing as a royal, with a house full of crazies who don't really abide by any kind of rules, of any house to get involved with. Why the hell would it be the broken house of Conrath?
I've only heard the bare minimum of what is going on in Mississippi, but never this much. And until right now, I've never heard the name House of Conrath. I'd never thought of it too much, that there would most certainly be a connection until now. Now that I know who Roman really is. A royal.
I never considered it for years,
Roman says, not backing down from John's fear-driven aggression.
But then last night changed things.
Everyone grows quiet for a solid minute. It's as if we can all sense it, that something big is coming, that a shift is about to happen, that things won't ever be the same after the coming words are spoken. For half a second, when Orlando came to the door, I thought it was you, Roman, Elena says. She leans forward, resting her elbows on the table. The black hair, the blue eyes, the danger radiating off of him. I thought he was you, and then he grabbed that crown and called you brother. Weight instantly settles over everyone now that the words are out. Each of us knows what this means.
Juliet and I led them away and talked.
Roman starts with what they know.
Orlando knew within minutes that I can't remember anything before my resurrection. But I can't...
He trails off. His gaze falls to the table, and he shakes his head. Orlando is definitely Roman's brother, I confirm for him. Roman is technically the rightful heir of the House of Badillo as the oldest child.
You're a royal,
Mason says flatly.
No, I'm not,
Roman responds, looking up and shaking his head.
Looks like you are,
John says.
Your father was Raoul, and he was killed by King Cyrus 19 years ago, if I'm remembering correctly. You're absolutely a royal, and if you're his oldest child, you're the heir to that house.
Then why would Orlando come looking for Roman? Sigrid asks. This isn't her world. She's been unusually quiet during this conversation. But even though she's surrounded by vampires, the royals and all their politics are foreign to her. If Roman is the rightful heir, why would Orlando come looking for him, unless he wants to give up his throne? Exactly, I say. Orlando isn't saying the truth yet.
He wants to meet tonight,
Roman says, his tone dark.
He wants to talk more.
Where is he now? Elena asks, her brows furrowed. The Carmen, I respond.
Any guesses what he actually wants?
Mason asks. Roman shakes his head.
I don't know. Maybe if I could remember, but he didn't give much away. I need to put someone on him. I'm sure he's watching us. We need to watch him.
My instincts are telling me that Orlando is here to cause drama, and little more. I know the type. To some degree, I am that type. I don't do well in calm, mundane situations. With my reckless nature, I seem to always be asking for it. But I don't know. What good does it do to stir up unnecessary concern when I truly don't know? I don't like being out of the loop, Elena says, the seriousness in her eyes reflecting her words. Find some way to get us in on that meeting without outing the fact that there is a council who governs Chicago. I am a little surprised when Roman nods. I can tell him you all are my friends. He has his house members. That will have to be understandable to him. But not you, Sigrid. The comment sounds harsh at first, but she doesn't look offended. I see no reason to put my charges under scrutiny if it is not necessary, Sigrid affirms. If we can keep our existence unknown, I think we all would prefer it that way. And might come in necessary, Mason says. I think it's best they not know we have a gifted who can alter their memories, or a human lie detector, or that freaking necromancers exist. Sigrid nods. I do wish to be informed of what happens, but I know we must be careful with our communication. Roman nods. I think until we have a better idea of what's going on, we need to keep council meetings to a minimum. Text messages, whatever needs to be said that shouldn't be overheard. I have an IT team who can set up a private network for us, Mason says. We don't know Orlando's resources. Best not to take any risks. Do things ever calm down in this city? John asks. He folds his arms over his chest and leans back in his seat. There's a little smirk on his scarred face. He doesn't handle the boring moments of life well either. It's obvious I get my recklessness from him. Not in a while, Elena says, and I don't know what the hell to make of the look she gives John. She and I need to have a serious conversation about her behavior toward my father at the party. The flirting, the staring, and John is reciprocating. What on earth is happening? Maybe you're right, Juliet, Elena says, moving on as her eyes slide back to me. You really did bring the drama. I suck in a deep breath. I'm not going to get a better opening. And you guys don't even know the half of it. What is that supposed to mean? She questions, her tone sobering. I look over at Roman, suddenly needing a little strength. I've kept secrets for so long now. The thought of exposing them all is kind of terrifying. Over the course of the next hour, I proceed to tell all of them every truth. About what my mother was, about the curse she placed on me as an infant. I tell them what happened with Pablo and how Roman was there to witness my second resurrection. I tell them the truth about how we trapped Archer King, and that it involved another of my deaths. We tell them how I've saved Roman's life multiple times, but that it led to my multiple deaths. I confess that Sebastian took the necromancer as prisoner, and that I allowed it. I tell them what I hoped we could do with him when John and I went looking for Ingrid's bones. He never knew this part, and I can see the devastation in his eyes. I report letting Marcus go, and then I fill them all in on what really happened the night Sebastian disappeared. Sebastian lost his mind, I say. My eyes are fixed on the table. He was totally convinced that Roman and I were having an affair, and he staked Roman. But he's still sitting here with us, Elena points out, confused. I nod. We discovered my gift that night. I touched Roman. I instantly died another death. But Roman came back. The table is silent for a good 60 seconds. What we're discussing is impossible. Vampires who drink blood and live immortal lives so long as they're not staked or beheaded is impossible enough. But coming back from the dead over and over, and the ability to bring others back as well, it's entirely impossible. Until it's not. You may be the most powerful vampire or gifted to ever walk this earth, Sigrid says, her tone low and serious. Complete power over death. I shake my head. I don't know what the limitations are. There are still a million question marks, and I'd really, really rather not have to test those limits. She gives an acknowledging nod. I simply implore you, my dear niece, to remember the great responsibility you have on your shoulders alongside this powerful gift. Many would use it for bad, terrible things. Always search your heart for your intentions. Be sure they are good. I nod, and for a minute, I can imagine how this all could be used for evil. So many would use my abilities to gain power, wealth, fear for themselves. You and I have never been and never will be black and white people. Sebastian said those words to me once, and I knew they were true then, and I know they are true now. I will never be all good. But now I have people around me who will undoubtedly keep me in check. You're right. Thank you, I say with a hoarse voice. Anything else you want to tell us? Elena asks with an arched brow. There's this look in her eyes, one that says she's disappointed in me that I didn't tell her all along, but there's also a hint of mischief there. I let out a breath because I know exactly what she's getting at. It's complicated, I admit, my tone snappy. We're figuring it out. Elena grows this smile, one that says, see, I knew it. What are we talking about? John asks, his brows furrowing. The fact that Roman and Juliet have been fated to fall for each other, Sigrid says, a coy smile curling in one corner of her mouth. You knew? I bark, my eyes snapping to her. She shrugs. I thought I was misreading things when you first came to town. You two were so savage toward each other. Surely I couldn't be seeing things correctly. But as time has gone on, it's grown stronger and stronger. You two are together? Mason questions. There is no jealousy there. We dealt with our feelings long ago, and from what I saw between him and Lily Roshan last night, I'm a thought of the past. But he is confused. Like she said, Roman answers, looking over at Mason. There is no sheepishness in his eyes, only cool confidence. It's complicated. I don't know why, Elena says. If it's fate, and you two have been looking at each other like you've been waiting to rip each other's clothes off for the last month. You've been out of your coma for 4 damn days, I call her out. That is my daughter, John growls, ignoring my comment. And that is freaking weird, Elena points out. But whatever. Glad you two idiots have finally opened your eyes. Just don't either of you turn into psychos over each other, okay? I'll try my best, I say, with a roll of my eyes. But I think on it for a second. What would I do for Roman? I might have only realized that there is something between us over the last 12 hours, but before that, he was the person I trusted most. I've literally died to save his life several times. Now that things are evolving, what other lengths would I go to for him? I've learned there is a line. Sebastian crossed it. Am I any better? Is there a line for me? Any other shocking news anyone wants to get off their chests? John asks. I have a date with Lily Roshan next Thursday, Mason says, way too casual for the news he's just shared. $50, Roman says. I might as well pay you now, I say. But you're going to have to wait. I don't have any cash on me. Excuse me? Mason asks, arching a brow. Nothing, I say. I'm really excited for you. Lily is seriously amazing. The smile that pulls on his lips tells me he thinks so too. Let us know what time Orlando wants to meet tonight, Elena says, as she stands, pushing her chair back. I will, Roman replies, and everyone gets to their feet, heading their separate ways. Chapter 3. I'm glad for a busy day. I end up covering in the emergency room for 2 hours. I deal with an allergic reaction to kiwis, a broken arm from a tumble down some icy stairs, stitches to a man's back, supposedly from standing up beneath some stairs and getting a scratch, but I see the blood on his girlfriend's shoes. And there is one man dragged in from the streets with alcohol poisoning. And then it's administrative work. It's nice to finally not feel like I'm drowning. After the last 4 weeks of practice, things are finally starting to feel kind of normal. With the most incredible assistant in the world, Holly, things work like clockwork. But I hear the words being whispered, the rumors. Many of our employees, vampires, were at the party and witnessed Orlando and the house showing up. They heard him call Roman brother. They saw him try to hand Roman a crown. The speculation on what it all means is varied, but all of it is close to the truth. I get texts throughout the day from Roman, sent to all the council members through the private chat Mason sets up. Orlando and the others have been at the hotel all morning. Found one of the house members following me, not giving him anything to see. So far, no signs of anyone we haven't been introduced to yet. That's good. The last thing we need is even more house members spying. Finally, just an hour before I'm done at the hospital, one last text comes through with an address and the time of 7 o'clock. "Are you okay today?" Holly asks when we're done going over what needs to happen tomorrow. She pulls a bag of donor blood from her bag and slides it across the table to me. "You seem on edge today." I just laugh, shaking my head. But still, I bite into the bag, trying not to moan at the coppery liquid as it hits my tongue. A little blood makes things so much better. "The strangers who showed up at the party last night?" I say, trying to decide how much to disclose. "They might mean trouble. The council is going to meet with them and try to find out what's going on." "There was something about them, wasn't there?" she says. "They seemed dangerous." I nod. "It's looking likely. Just lay low for a few days, okay?" She nods, and I grab my bag from the hook on the back of my door. I pull my coat on and head down the hall and out onto the sidewalk. It's a frigid walk back to my building. Spring still feels ages away, even though it's mid-February. I just want some sunshine. Ha, yeah, right. I'm a freaking vampire with extreme eye sensitivity to the sun. Even with sunshades, it's still disorienting and uncomfortable to be out during the day. The elevator rattles and creaks as I ride up to my floor. Once inside my apartment, I dump my things and head into the shower. I stand in my closet for a solid 5 minutes, unsure what is the proper attire to wear when meeting with a literal royal vampire. Guess I've been in the presence of one for nearly a year. Life was just a little less complicated not knowing he was the heir to an entire region of Europe. I settle on some black, faux leather pants, a deep green top with a sheer fabric covering my shoulders, details adorning the bodice, and some boots. I dab on some makeup and slick my hair back into a low bun. Glancing at the clock, I find I have 30 minutes until we're supposed to meet. I grab my phone and step out into the living room to call Roman. Only, my heart skyrockets right into my throat when I find Roman sitting in one of my chairs, one ankle crossed over the other knee. "How the hell are you so quiet I didn't hear you come in?" I ask, pressing a hand into my heart to calm it down. "Practice," he says. "I thought we better talk before we see Orlando." "Technically, we aren't together, so you can't break up with me," I tease, even though I only half joke. "We better talk" don't sound like words I want to hear. "Exactly," Roman says, cocking his head slightly to the side. "I think we need to be a little clearer. He shakes his head. "We've had one conversation, and heirs and shit like that has already been talked about. I don't want Orlando thinking there is an ounce of wiggle room on the subject." Rage and annoyance instantly flare hot through my blood. It's the reason Elena tried to keep Mason and me apart after I resurrected. As a vampire, I can no longer have children. Mason needed heirs. I couldn't give him that. And now, here it is again, in my face, only this time, the stakes are higher. We're talking about heirs to a throne. I will never be able to give Roman little princes or princesses.
I have never wanted kids, Juliet, Roman says, getting to his feet and crossing to me. And I wonder how my rage was showing that he immediately seems to know what was going on in my head. It's never crossed my mind to try and create my own born. Orlando can go to hell if he even brings it up. Roman tentatively reaches a hand out, placing it on my hip. It's so strange. Is this okay? Should he ask? Should I ask him to touch me? Where is the line of what is okay when we're not sure what we are with each other? My eyes rise to meet his. I think things need to be clear to Orlando, so there is no question as to where I stand and why, Roman says evenly. I try to find my words. I try to speak up for myself. I try to search for a snarky remark. But damn, I didn't realize how deep this wound ran. When it comes to the house, you and I need to be as good as married, Juliet, Roman says, his tone quiet and low, serious as the grave. Is that okay? His gaze doesn't waver. I see no doubt there. I swallow once, feeling like an emotional mess. You really mean it? I ask. My words shake. I don't want them to, but if my true emotions come out in front of anyone, it will always be Roman. You're not going to hold it against me that I can't give you any heirs? You're not going to harbor any regret? The look in his eyes intensifies. Never. I swear it on every time you've saved my life, Juliet. I rock up onto the balls of my feet, my hand lacing into his black hair, and I pull his lips to mine. Mason and I were living outside of reality, and eventually, that came to an end. Sebastian and I were all about connecting over our pain in the past. But Roman? I feel like Roman is all about my future. With Roman, I've growed. I've healed. And all that was before I even realized how I felt about him. His hands wrap around my waist, pulling my center toward his, gripping me tight. His teeth tease my lower lip. His 5 o'clock shadow scratches my chin, and it's the most incredible thing. His scent, the aura that just emanates from him, it's intoxicating as it fills me. I nod in answer to his question. He pulls back, just slightly, so he can look into my eyes. Okay, when it comes to the house, I'm as attached to you as every square inch of your skin. He lets out the smallest, relieved breath and leans in to take my lips once again. Roman DeLuca. I'm kissing Roman freaking DeLuca like he's my last breath on this earth. Someone I was once totally terrified of is holding on to me like I'm the only reason he's alive. And even though we haven't actually figured out where we are with each other, what we are, I feel his touch down to my core. I feel his want, his claiming, all the way down to my soul. Roman's phone chirps, and we both crash back down to reality. We have somewhere to be, and we have to get moving. Let's go, Roman says. He steps toward the door, but not before he catches my hand in his, our fingers intertwining. We walk several blocks and find the address is the John Hancock building. Just as we step inside, I find John waiting. Not going to lie, I'm nervous about this, John says, as Roman and I walk to join him. What you all are doing here in Chicago, it's damn unique. The possible consequences if the royals figure it out. Roman raises a finger to his lips, the clear signal to be quiet. And he's right. Orlando could easily have planted someone to listen to our conversation. John immediately shuts his lips and nods. Just then, Elena and Mason walk in, each of them looking godlike, powerful, intimidating, ready to handle anyone, even royals, especially flanked by their bodyguards, Tabitha and Patrick. Let's go, Elena says, and heads to the elevator without hesitation. 10 seconds later, it dings, and the doors slide open. The 7 of us step inside, and Roman presses the button for one of the very top levels. As far as the royals are concerned, Juliet and I are all but married, Roman says, his tone even, nothing but fact leaving his lips. I'm not letting there be any wiggle room in this.
Orlando isn't going to say shit about heirs. Everyone got it? There's a moment of surprised hesitancy as each of them digests what Roman just said. But each of them mutters in agreement. The unease that comes from Mason and Elena is palpable. Elena knows the harm she did by being so hardcore on Mason needing kids. Mason knows he has to have them, and he knew it back then too. But as Roman grips my hand tightly, he's so damn steady. I feel no question marks, no gray areas. He means it. He's sure. Something tingles across my skin. My heart does this weird little flutter. I feel my confidence grow just a little, and the peace I've been searching for my entire life saturates one layer deeper. It's a long ride up the massive skyscraper. Finally, the door dings and slides open. I think this space might be a club, but honestly, it's hard to tell. The floors are polished black marble. The walls and ceiling are also painted black. Floor-to-ceiling windows give the most incredible view of the city just after sundown. There's a bar to one side and a lounge area on the opposite side with white couches and overstuffed chairs. The center of the space is clear, maybe a dance floor. How the hell did Orlando get access to this space? Orlando is in the lounge area, talking to a woman with his charming look of complete attention. She's human. I can smell that immediately. There are 6 other human men and women here. With the 7 house members Orlando brought with him, it's a much larger crowd than I expected. It makes our entourage feel tiny. Andres, Orlando says with a smile as his eyes slide over to us. He holds his arms wide in greeting, but it all feels like a dramatic show. Dr. Juliet Doe, I am so happy you've come, and you've brought friends. If he's surprised or bothered by us bringing others with us, Orlando doesn't show it. He simply turns curious eyes on each of them. This is Elena and Mason Godfrey, Roman introduces them. And Juliet's father, John. Tabitha, Patrick, everyone, this is my brother, Orlando. Mason extends a hand to shake, but Orlando simply ignores it and wraps Mason in a hug instead, as if we're all just one big happy family. I don't know what game he's playing right now, but I don't like it. Andres never did have many friends, so I'm thrilled to hear he's finally figured out how not to scare everyone away with those dirty looks of his, Orlando says, releasing Mason, who looks extremely uncomfortable, and turns to John. He gives a moment of observation, noting my father's scars before hugging him as well. When Orlando turns to Elena, she holds a hand up, pressing her fingertips into Orlando's chest, keeping him at bay. I don't do hugs. Tabitha looks like she'd very much like to tear Orlando apart, limb from limb. But she holds it together for the sake of everyone's cover. Orlando smirks, and his eyes drop down the length of Elena. He gets this smirk, one that says he likes what he sees. Fair enough. Why don't you all come join us? Cautiously, we all follow Orlando to the lounge. There's already a man with his fangs sunk into a woman's neck. Her eyes are just barely open, a zoned-out look on her face. Another vampire woman is laughing at a human man as she trails her fingers up and down his chest. Gross. Orlando sinks down into a chair, his arms spread out, the picture of relaxation. Roman and I sit on the couch across from him, the others settling beside us. I have to say, so far, I like Chicago, Orlando says as a woman walks by him, skimming her hand down his chest. He looks up at her with hunger, with a look of predatory possession. You hear about the crime, the danger here, but so far I find it to be a very friendly place. Might want to be careful, I speak up, because I can't help it. The STD rates in this city are on the rise. Good to know. Thank you, doctor, he says, with a smile that's bordering on condescension. I did some digging on you, by the way. Congrats on the takeover of the hospital. Pretty impressive you got away with Sebastian Vincent's disappearance.
Gotta say, I'm a little confused why you and he didn't work out. On paper, it looked like a match made in heaven.
My skin is crawling. I hate that this man I distrust with every hair on my body has looked me up. I hate that everyone in the world thinks the same thing about Sebastian and me. Because, in the end, it all went down in flames and nearly caused a second Chicago fire. Some people can't be taken at face value, I say, leaning back, mirroring Orlando's pose of calm and ease. We'll see how you shake out, Orlando Badillo.
She's so damn perfect for you, brother,
Orlando says, with a smirk in Roman's direction.
Guess I understand why things didn't work out, doctor on doctor. Sebastian is a despicable coward who will be dealt with severely as soon as he's tracked down,
Roman says, his jaw tight.
You know,
Orlando continues, and how I'd like to erase that smirk from his face permanently.
I just caught it. Roman, which, by the way, I think it's hilarious you went by that name for 24 years, goes and falls in love with Juliet. How damn poetic.
Orlando put it together in 24 hours, yet it took me 3 months to put Archer King's prophecy together. He'd said I had the chance to correct one of the world's most well-known tragedies. Romeo and Juliet never crossed my mind until last night. Is Roman ever going to ask Orlando about the origins of the alias Roman DeLuca? I kind of doubt it. He said he has no interest in knowing who he was, and so far he's not asking Orlando any questions to solve the mystery of his past.
We're all very entertained by the irony,
John grits out, sounding the exact opposite of amused.
I think we'd all like to stop beating around the bush. You found Roman's booking photo. Can we assume that means you've been looking for him?
Orlando's eyes slide over to John, and some of the humor slips from his gaze.
Only since the day he took off from the house. It's pretty impressive, actually, in this day and age, that he's managed to keep any photos of himself off the web.
He's got resources, then. Scanning the entire internet for one face is a massive endeavor. Orlando found Roman's face in 8 days or less. John nods in acknowledgement.
So, can we assume you're here in Chicago to collect your brother and take him back to Spain?
Not necessarily, Orlando answers straight, surprising me. He takes a pack of cigarettes from his pocket and places one between his lips. He produces a lighter and lights it. Definitely not allowed to smoke in this building. But what would a freaking royal care? Then I think we'd all like to hear the answer as to what you're here for, then? Elena asks. Orlando takes a long drag before draping his arm, flicking the butt.
You all seem very on edge. You realize that?
Shit. He's way too damn observant. The way he's keeping an eye on Tabitha and Patrick, I wonder if he has realized they're bodyguards.
What is it anyone's concern if I travel anywhere I feel like being a tourist?
He asks, narrowing his eyes at Elena.
Would you be so concerned if I were to visit Atlanta, Los Angeles, Seattle?
Well, I don't live in any of those cities, so perhaps not, she points out, her own eyes narrowed. And the long-lost brother of a royal hasn't been residing in those cities, now has he?
You're used to telling people what to do, aren't you?
Orlando points out, taking another hit from his cancer stick. He didn't have the Godfrey's names until just a few minutes ago, so he couldn't have dug into Elena or Mason. He's just reading it off of her presence. And he's not wrong. People generally answer my questions when I ask them, she counters, not backing down for a second.
Would you believe me if I said I have missed my only living family member and simply wanted to know why he seemingly abandoned me? If I wanted confirmation with my own eyes that he isn't dead, because after 24 years, it's what I began to believe?
The room is silent, the weight filling the room like poisonous gas. After the way he's been talking, I doubt the others in the room will believe him. His tone tells me he doesn't think they will. But I hear something in his voice. I hear it in the undercurrents of his tone. Is that really all Orlando is here for? Family matters. I discovered just how much when my long-lost father showed up after 29 years of having no idea who he was. Orlando is telling the truth on that part. Roman is his only remaining family. Their sister died as a child. Their mother and father both met their demises. Could it really be as simple as wanting to reconnect? Doesn't make much sense considering Roman, Andres, is the elder son, Mason says, throwing the truth into question. You're putting yourself at a huge risk by seeking him out. Do you want the house, Andres? Orlando asks, his tone bored. No, Roman answers flatly. Orlando arches a brow and looks back at Mason with a half-smile. See? I still don't think I buy it, and I get the feeling that neither do any of the others with me. I want to get one thing straight. Roman speaks up. I have no intention of going back to Spain with you. My life is here in Chicago, and I intend to keep living it. The royal's expression grows more serious, more irritated. He looks at his brother, and I try to understand the calculation there, the game. I need to understand the danger that he is. You sure about that? Orlando asks. We have a nice wing for you back at the house. How would you like to be tied to royalty, Dr. Juliet? Where people revere your man, where respect is commanded, where you don't have to work another day in your life. Interesting tactic, using me to try and tempt Roman. I'll pass, I say, not even considering what he's proposing. The hospital needs me. My friends are here. Besides, my Spanish is abysmal. That gains me another grin from Orlando. Estaré feliz de enseñarte. Ni en sueños. Roman snarls back, the Spanish words rolling off his tongue without a moment of thought. Orlando smiles again, entirely entertained by whatever he just said. You all will have to forgive my poor manners. I have yet to introduce my house members. He barely raised his voice, but each of those house members stands right then, coming to circle around their royal. I scan their faces, memorizing every one. My second in command, Javier, Orlando introduces, indicating the man with an incredible jawline and perfectly slicked back black hair. He is the one who accompanied Orlando into my apartment when Roman and I talked. His brother, Santiago. Then we have the lovely Lisa, and no one could forget Georgia. And then there is Lucas, Bruno, and Hugo. Guess we know who his least favorites of the bunch are. Is this the entirety of your house? Mason asks. Stars, no. Orlando chuckles. I couldn't leave an unattended region. Gabriella is keeping things in order at home. The House of Badillo is 71 members strong. Holy shit. 71 house members? I had absolutely no idea that the houses had anywhere near those numbers when it came to their members. 10, 12, maybe 18. 71 able-bodied vampires is practically a private army. Are most houses that big? Elena asks, unable to completely cover her surprise. A few, but not most, Orlando answers. The House of Badillo is an old one with deep allies. Few typically leave once accepted into the fold. It's hard to comprehend the loyalty and the ancient ties that come with these royals. From my understanding, they run back thousands of years to some war that split the vampire population into two kinds, the royals and the born. And that, too, was based on loyalty. Speaking of houses, Orlando suddenly changes direction. Have you all had the pleasure of meeting your regents yet? Something cold drops into my veins. From the silence and stiffness of those around me, I think I'm not the only one. No, Orlando says, and the look in his eyes tells me that he already had the answer to his question. Well, you all are going to get the wonderful opportunity. I've invited Charles and Chelsea Alloway to a party you all are hosting in their honor tomorrow night. The Alloways never could resist a good party.
They are very excited.
They're coming here? Elena asks, her tone a little strained.
To this very room, to be exact.
Orlando continues, casting his eyes around the space. Tomorrow. Tomorrow, the royals who rule over this area will be coming into the city where we hide from them. Orlando being here is bad enough, but he's here for his brother, not on business. He doesn't have say over this area. We aren't his charges, but we are the Alloways.
Chelsea is coming,
the one named Santiago asks, an interested eyebrow arching.
Keep it in your pants,
Javier, his brother, chides.
Trust me, you are not her type. You all ought to be honored and thrilled,
Orlando says in that condescending, feigned ignorant tone, cutting the previous conversation off.
Tuos de Royal is a rare event. Or are you all too partied out after your curious event last night?
My heart stops for 2 beats. If anything gives us away as to what we're doing here in Chicago, it will be that party. Any excuse for a party is a good excuse, Elena says with a smile. Finally, she's slipping into her best acting. Have you all got the details planned out yet, or could you use my help?
I would be delighted to have your help, Elena Godfrey,
Orlando says, his tone dripping with misogynistic sarcasm. The lowest growl rumbles in the back of John's throat, and I honestly don't know what the hell to make of that. Then we better not waste any more time, Elena says as she stands. Tell me what you've got in the works. Chapter 4. The council goes into crisis management mode. The first thought is to contact all the vampires in Chicago and give them a warning about the royals being here in the city. We could suggest they get out of the city for a while, but it seems more likely someone will end up doing something stupid and get us exposed. Curiosity has killed many cats. I call Echo and tell her that the blood trade needs to be paused for a few days. Roman meets with his team and impresses the need for extra secrecy, to not be seen as they patrol and watch the movements of the royals. We contact Sigrid, and she lets all the gifted in the city know that they really need to keep their heads down for a few days. Mason assigns all of his vampire employees overtime work. If we can keep them occupied, working where they won't expose anything, that's a good thing. So long as we keep the royals out of Godfrey Tower, no one will be any the wiser that dozens upon dozens of vampires come and go from that building every day. Remind me of everything we know about the Alloways, I say as I lean closer to the mirror, applying my mascara.
Chelsea and Charles are twins,
Roman says. He leans in the doorway of the bathroom, his arms crossed over his chest. He wears a black suit, of course, the top 4 buttons undone, of course.
Their mother led the house before, but Chelsea killed her 30-something years ago.
Shit, I say, raising my brows. Roman nods.
As far as I know, that was the last time King Cyrus was in the country, when he checked to see if Chelsea was his queen. They figured out she wasn't within a few days.
I don't know if that's fast or slow, I question, looking at Roman's reflection in the mirror while I apply a little blush.
Fast,
Roman says with a quick raise of his eyebrows.
The queen doesn't remember who she is when she first resurrects. It's taken weeks before, months.
For having no memory of being part of a royal family, you sure know a lot, I say as I dump everything into my makeup basket. I spin around, admiring Roman's silhouette. I cross the space between us, sliding my hand up his chest until I grip the collar of his shirt.
Knowledge is survival,
Roman says as his hands cover mine. Hunger sparks in his eyes, and it still amazes me that we're here, that touching him is on the table, that the intimacy between us runs far deeper than physical attraction. It's pretty damn sexy, I say, my tone low and husky, a smile flitting on my lips. I rise onto the balls of my feet and press my lips to his. Roman's hand cups the side of my face, and he deepens the kiss. His scent envelops me, making every hormone in my body go completely haywire. His other hand slowly slides down, coming to my lower back. Ugh, the things I would do for this man. The things I have done for him. And this was once a man I was terrified of, and now I trust him with every cell of my cursed and gifted being. Anything else I need to know? I ask. As much as I want to stay right here and get lost outside of my reality in my apartment with Roman, I know we need to get going. Roman steps back and watches me pull on my shoes. They're fairly hands-off when it comes to their rule, he adds. Of the 4 houses that reign over the states, theirs has the highest population. The number of problems they should have to deal with is overwhelming. Yet, in the 20-plus years I've been in Chicago, they've never stepped foot in the city. Which is shocking, I note. I grab my bag and sling it over my shoulder. We step for the door and walk out. I lock the door behind me. I mean, it's Chicago, which is drama on its own. And look at everything that's happened just in the amount of time I've been here. I know I wasn't the first chaos this city has ever had to deal with. Roman shakes his head as we step into the elevator. I can think of at least 3 instances when it should have been the Alloway's job to take care of things, yet it was the council that did what was needed. Hopefully this helps to our advantage, I say, letting out a hard breath. Let's just pray they have a great time at this party and go home. Roman's silence as we step out of the elevator is an answer that he doesn't expect that to be the case. It's raining outside, so we take Roman's SUV. The streets are crowded, and parking is a nightmare in a vehicle of this size, but finally, we step foot into the building. I let out a slow, controlled breath as we rise up the elevator. The fear John has created in me over the royals is real. I vowed that I would eternally stay off their radar, yet here they are, the leaders of not 1, but 2 houses. And hell, it's my life, so I know things can't just go smoothly. Roman places a hand at the small of my back as we step out. It's a reassuring gesture, one that reminds me that I'm not alone tonight. We're a team. I slide my hand into his, interlacing our fingers, a reminder to him that I'm here for him too, no matter what happens tonight. Elena went all out. Where the event room was all black and white last night, it's now washed in hues of red and gold. The decor is over the top, and there's no way she threw this party without spending well over 10 grand. Servers weave their way in and out of the guests, offering fancy little appetizers and carrying around champagne glasses filled with blood. There are a few familiar faces here. It's a party, after all, so we had to invite a few trusted vampires to represent the population. Dr. Roshan is among them, as well as Tabitha and Patrick. Ivana, who is a member of Roman's team, floats effortlessly among the crowd. There are a few other people I recognize as employees of Mason's. The rumors about Roman possibly being a royal in hiding have spread throughout the city. Tonight, it will be confirmed to enough people it will solidify it all as fact. Among the crowd, there is Orlando's crew we were all introduced to last night. There are a dozen humans, and considering what this party is about, flaunting power, I know they're only here as bloodbags. It's immediately clear who is here from the House of Alloway. It's impossible to miss Chelsea and Charles. Each has fiery red hair. There's no mistaking they're siblings. And there are 5 other vampires with them that I don't recognize, apparent members of their house. Elena slips up beside us, looking as goddess-like as usual. So far, no one has died, and only 1 human has been turned into a blood bag, she says, her eyes scanning the crowd. Any interaction with the Alloways yet? I ask, keeping my tone low. Vampires have exceptional hearing. There are 40-something people here, and the music is fairly loud, but I don't need anyone overhearing our conversations. Oh, yeah, Elena says, raising her eyebrows. They're a treat. I don't know how to interpret that, but I get some first-hand experience right off the bat, because Chelsea's eyes slide over to Roman and stay fixed. She grabs Charles roughly by the elbow and drags him over with her. "Andres Badillo," Chelsea says, her tone dripping with flirtation. "It's almost like seeing a ghost. Is it true you have actual amnesia?"
"Chelsea, it's nice to meet you,"
Roman says coolly, extending a hand. He keeps it very formal and completely ignores her question.
"Charles, welcome to Chicago."
"Can you believe we've been in this area for over 40 years and this is our first time in the city?" Chelsea lays a hand on Roman's arm and a prickly monster flares inside me. I'd really like to rip her hand from him and feed it to the rats that hide out in the alleyways.
"You don't say,"
Roman responds. He's trying to be cordial and relaxed, but it comes out sounding more condescending than I think he means to.
"You hear about all the violence and murders, and whoever wants to dive into that,"
Charles says with a chuckle.
"Though I think the news exaggerates. So far, I haven't even seen a single gun."
He and Chelsea laugh as if it's the funniest thing ever said. Roman, Elena, and I just look at them, blinking in disbelief. "We haven't been introduced yet," I say, cutting into their idiocy. "Dr. Juliet Doe, Roman's better half." Chelsea's eyes sober, meeting mine. And immediately following, they slide down to my left hand. "Not so serious as to put a ring on it, though. Thank the dark for that." A wicked, sultry smile curls on her lips as she looks up at Roman.
"It's only a matter of time,"
Roman says as he wraps an arm around my waist, pulling me in closer.
"The woman is picky. In the end, a custom design was all that would cut it."
"You like them high maintenance, then?" Charles asks, a slight sneer in his tone.
"Whatever my woman wants, she gets,"
Roman says, his tone low and serious as the grave. He looks down at me, raising a hand to cup the side of my face, and he dips to take a kiss. It's slow but intense, hard and claiming. The little noise in the back of Elena's throat reminds me that this is the first time she's seen this, the evidence that something has seriously evolved between Roman and me. The noise rumbling out of Chelsea is something different. Annoyed, jealous, vindictive.
"Why don't you introduce us to your house members?"
Roman says as he straightens, tightening his grip on me in a message that's impossible to miss. Chelsea isn't going to gain 1 inch of space between us.
"Certainly,"
Charles says, lifting his chin with pride. He snaps his fingers, and slowly, I see the 5 others disengage with whatever they were doing and drift our way.
"Andreas, Dr. Doe, I'd like to introduce you to the House of Alloway. This is Isabel Mote, Jameson Tilate, Bianca James, Benson Lind, and Lexington Dawes. Everyone, this is the long-lost brother of Orlando Badillo."
"Amnesia is for real, then?" the one named Lexington asks, an amused expression on his face, a blonde eyebrow raised.
"Seems so,"
Roman says, a warning in his tone. He's done talking about this.
"Tell me, is Vermont really all trees and bed and breakfast joints?"
"You should see it in the fall," Chelsea says, too bright and too flirtatious. "You wouldn't believe the colors."
"Brother!"
Orlando's voice booms over the crowd. He bears his arms wide open, walking right up to Roman and wrapping him in a big hug Roman doesn't reciprocate.
"You look stunning and deadly as ever. And Juliet,
He makes this low, nearly pained-sounding groan.
"Red is certainly your color."
It's definitely not. Purple seems to bring out my coloring best. But it doesn't stop Orlando's eyes from dropping down the length of me and slowly rising up.
"If you'd like to keep your eyes, you'll watch where they wander,"
Roman threatens.
"Don't take things so seriously, Andres,"
Orlando teases.
"Sharing is caring."
Roman's hand snaps out, gripping Orlando by the collar. He drags his brother to his face, only a hair apart.
"Leave Juliet the hell alone."
Orlando shoves himself away from Roman, his brows furrowing. Chelsea and Charles make entertained ooh and ah sounds, watching the drama unfold between long-lost brothers. It isn't lost on me what Orlando said, that he was surprised Roman let him keep his limbs, something about it being over a woman. I'm not worried about whoever this woman might have been. But I wonder now how many times Orlando has poked at Roman's love life, all in the name of entertainment. Or how many times has he tried to take a woman from Roman just for shits and giggles? There is the brother I lost, Orlando says, a smile slowly curling on his lips. Nothing done in harm. Come on, it's a party. Let's have a little fun. As if the DJ was listening to Orlando, the music changes, the volume increases, and the dancing starts. Orlando bounces out onto the dance floor, taking the hand of one of the human women. He twirls her around and dips her low. He trails his nose along her corroded artery and sinks his fangs into her neck. My stomach turns a little. I've taken blood from unwilling victims before. I've killed 2 people, but it's still traumatizing to watch. At least at Roman nights, everyone knows what they're getting into. I hope these humans really know what they're here for. I glance over at Elena, who raises an eyebrow and cooks her head to one side for just a second. And together, all 3 of us step forward to join this madness. Chelsea, may I have just one dance? Santiago asks, taking the first opportunity he sees. She sneers. No hiding it, no shame. But with a groan, she extends a hand, and Santiago takes it triumphantly. I don't think there's actual attraction there. But Chelsea is a house leader, and Santiago is just any other house member. If he can get involved romantically with a royal, his whole life could change. Ambition can be found anywhere, human, gifted, or vampire. I've never seen anyone who can drink like Chelsea. Booze, blood, she guzzles it all down. I have to try and be sneaky as I start shuffling the humans out of here when they start looking woozy. That's the last thing we need, to have them turn into a bitten or end up dead. I've only just fallen out from under the suspicion of Superintendent Day. I would really like to keep her nose out of our business. Orlando is loud and obnoxious and absolutely enjoying the night. He doesn't let anyone not participate. He drags people to their feet and pushes them out onto the dance floor. Santiago keeps following Chelsea around, and she keeps ignoring him for the most part. Roman and I watch the party unfold, just waiting for the shoe to drop. Orlando is playing a game. No part of me doubts it. I wonder if Orlando can read our unease as much as he could when we met here just yesterday. Does he recognize the lines of worry on Mason's forehead? The tenseness of Elena's jaw? John's ever-watchful eyes? Or that Roman is always poised to attack, whatever the circumstances may be? I watch Chelsea and Charles. Long term, they are who we will have to deal with. They are the regents for this area. But when I look at them, I don't see leaders. I see drunkards. I see ridiculous laughing. I see adults who act like teenagers. I see no one who looks fit to rule. Sometimes leadership being passed down by blood is truly a horrible thing. Good sense and leadership aren't necessarily hereditary. Finally, around 4 a.m, Orlando crashes down into one of the lounge chairs. He waves Chelsea and Charles over, as well as Roman and me. Elena and Mason wander over, even though they weren't specifically invited. Not bad for 24 hours of planning, right? Orlando asks, breathing hard. He's all smiles, all show. If Chicago is this much fun, we need to return more often, Chelsea says as she grins and bats her eyes in Roman's direction. She's been rubbing up on him all night, and I've been strategically placing myself between him and her this entire time, trying my best not to tear her to pieces. If looks could kill, Santiago would have burned Roman to a crisp from the get-go. Trust me, this is all Orlando, Roman says smoothly, deflecting what could be a truly horrible outcome. Come on, brother, Orlando eggs. You're a Badillo. You naturally keep things interesting. It's in our blood. When he says interesting, There's something in his tone that hints this isn't necessarily the product of good, clean fun.
So, Chelsea, Charles,
Orlando says as he leans back into his seat and crosses one ankle over the opposite knee.
what do you think of my friends? They seem respected here, no?
Chelsea turns an evaluating eye at Elena. Charles assesses Mason with something hungry in his eyes.
What's not to respect?
Charles says, curling a smile for Mason's benefit.
It doesn't bother you that everyone in this room naturally looks to these four?
Orlando asks as he pulls out a cigarette and lights it. Since when has it been a crime to be an upstanding citizen? I ask, annoyance and worry flaring in my blood. You're looking at the CEO and CFO of one of the richest companies in the world. I'm a doctor. I catch myself before I finish saying the name. Andres is protective of this community.
Why so defensive, Dr. Doe?
Orlando questions, his eyes narrowing, even though I know he's not confused. Don't mess around, Orlando, I warn. If you need to get something off your chest, just say it.
You've never met a royal before, have you, Dr. Doe?
He asks, his eyes narrowing at me. Haven't had the pleasure yet, I say, though I can't keep the condescension from my tone.
You really ought to keep your attitude in check when you're around us, he says, his tone growing more serious. It's best not to forget who's really in charge when it comes to the vampires. And you ought to check your shit-stirring attitude,
John snarls. Orlando casts his eyes in John's direction, a cold-as-steel look. I can see the gears turning in his head, and I realize now that I do need to keep myself in check because my actions don't only affect me. I have people I love now, and I have to do what it takes to protect them.
Perhaps it's time to keep a closer eye on the Windy City, Chelsea, Charles,
Orlando says, looking at them with a dark expression. I wonder, if he were our regent and not them, would things be going differently?
Have you ever heard of any problems in Chicago?
Charles asks, as he arches an eyebrow at Orlando.
Seems we've been doing just fine. Why don't you stick to Spain and let us worry about the States?
Orlando doesn't say anything. It seems ridiculous that these red-headed idiots are equals to Orlando Badillo. I'm a million times more worried about him than I am them. But because they both have royal blood, they gain equal power.
Look at us, discussing work and politics at a party, Orlando says.
It's incredible how quickly he can flip the switch.
How very American of us. Elena, might I have the honor of a dance?
I know my friend well enough to recognize the flash of you in her eyes. But as he's just stated, he's a royal. And you don't tell a royal no, apparently. Let's all have a drink, Chelsea says, waving one of the servers over. It's one of the longest nights of my life. I keep waiting for something to explode. I keep expecting Orlando to do something truly crazy, or for the Alloways to get wind of what's really going on here in Chicago. But it's just a party. A really freaking long party. The awkwardness and stress are nearly enough to kill me. But finally, at 6 a.m, half of the attendees have left, each of them anxious to get to wherever they're staying for the day before the sun comes up.
Orlando, I'm so glad you invited us,
Charles says. His face is flushed, and I wonder what guy in attendance here is the reason for his now rumpled hair.
If you ever find yourself back in the States, you are always welcome to our territory. Thank you,
Orlando says, with the slightest bow of his head.
I know things will always be a good time with the Alloways.
I look down at my phone as it rings. It's the hospital. Excuse me, I have to take this, I say to no one in particular. Roman watches me as I walk out of the room. When the elevator opens, I step inside to find it empty. This is Dr. Doe, I answer. It's the emergency room, letting me know that the police were called in twice last night. Once for a stabbing, a second time for a gunshot wound. The second patient died before they could get them to the operating table. Yeah, the paperwork required will be a week's worth of headaches. At least I have some support staff now to help me handle it all. The elevator hits the ground level, and I step out past 3 people waiting to go up. After this insane night, I need some fresh air. I walk outside, feeling the presence of the sun dancing just below the horizon. The day is clear, so it's going to be a blindingly bright day. But for now, I stand out on the sidewalk, turning my face up to the sky. We take care of one disaster, and another one starts. I haven't even been in Chicago for a year yet, but it's already been more than I ever could have imagined when I learned what I am. I don't like this unknown, having no idea what Orlando really wants. I don't like the uncertainty about Roman's future now that we know who he really is. I wrap my arms around myself and take in one deep breath. You made it through some crazy shit, Juliet, I tell myself. You're going to get through this too. I have to say, I don't understand what it is he sees in you. I nearly groan at the voice I hear from behind. Do you have any idea how many royals were waiting for Andres to resurrect? Chelsea says as she walks up beside me. The alliances that could come from marrying into the house of Badillo, and then he goes and falls for a nobody? Life is mysterious, isn't it? I say, trying to ignore her. Chelsea shakes her head. I look behind us. She's alone, and I realize she's followed me. He has time. He's immortal, and with no one to protect you, he'll have options when you're out of the picture. I plan to be the first in line. Are you for... My words cut off as I turn to get serious, violence running through my blood. But something forceful and sharp jams into my chest. My eyes slide down from Chelsea's to the wooden stake she's just slammed into my chest. It's nothing personal, she says, wearing a wicked smile. But you don't deserve him. The breath doesn't pull in and out of my lungs. I feel them filling with blood. Cold creeps up my feet, up my forearms. Shit. Chelsea watches me with an evil smile as I fall to my knees in front of her, and then drop dead to the pavement. Chapter 5. The entire universe rumbles. I feel everything funnel, every star and asteroid, every bit of space junk, and all the moons you could imagine flow to the same narrow point, before it all explodes in a volcanic eruption. A gasp rips out of me as I sit up, my hands clawing at my chest. Someone curses, and I look up to find I'm in an alleyway. Santiago gapes at me in utter disbelief. There are trace amounts of blood on his hands, and I realize he's dragged me from the sidewalk here. Estabas muerto, he says in awestruck mortification. Via Chelsea matarte. My heart starts hammering faster. No, bad. This is bad. Witnesses to what I can do are bad. How are you alive? Santiago demands, crossing the alley. His expression shifts from shock to villainous curiosity. He grips me by my bloodied dress. I followed Chelsea, and then I watched her stake you through the heart. I don't know what you think you saw, I say, trying to come up with a plausible lie on the fly. But that Chelsea is a bitch. Don't go calling her names or she'll knock you flat out. Santiago shakes his head. I know what I saw. You were dead, gray on the ground. I moved your damn body so no one would call the police. That's impossible, I point out, trying to get my legs working. I feel sluggish when I first come back. I know I need to get out of here. I need to take care of this problem. But my brain isn't working as fast as it should be. You've done this more than once, he says, realization dawning in his dark eyes. You would not be so calm otherwise. You're being way too dramatic, and you're totally daydreaming, I say, getting desperate to get out of here. Santiago smiles and shakes his head. And I can see the devious plan shifting in his eyes. Forget trying to woo Chelsea.
I don't think so.
In a movement that's nothing more than a blur, he drags out a blade and plunges it down into my heart. Damn it. With a wet gasp, I die for the second time in the last 25 minutes. Way to break your own records, Juliet. It begins with the quaking. Deep, coming from the core of the earth, except it all happens within my own impossible system. Then, the noise penetrates every bit of consciousness I have, deep, low. It builds, and finally it all erupts. Automatically, my hands fly to my chest, and a yell of agony rips from my throat as I sit up. My chest is a cavern of pain. Surely someone has just scooped out my heart and has left my ribcage wide open. But there is no gaping hole in my chest. There is no stake, no blade, just my bloodied skin, smooth and even.
How many times have you resurrected?
My head rips in the direction of the voice, and I find Santiago sitting in a chair in the corner. My eyes dart around, trying to quickly evaluate the seriousness of the situation. I'm in a room. It's dark. There are no windows. There's only a bed, which I'm sitting on, and that chair he occupies. With vampiric speed, I dart for the door, yanking it open. Only to hiss in complete agony at the blinding sunlight that feels like it sears all the way into the back of my skull. Out of sheer survival instinct, I shove the door closed, plunging myself back into the comforting darkness.
It's only 8 in the morning,
Santiago says with a satisfied smile.
We have hours of daylight coming at that door, and don't think you're just going to cover your eyes and run for cover. We're nowhere near any form of shelter.
Shit. Where the hell could we be? I've only been out for 20 minutes. Is he lying?
How many times have you resurrected?
He asks again as he gets to his feet and slowly stalks toward me. I back away, though I don't have far to retreat in this small space. You don't know what you're talking about.
You're right,
he admits. His eyes never leave mine once. They're dark, so dark they nearly seem black. He's tall, built, dark hair and dark brows. He has thin lips and a strong, proud nose. He's handsome for a killer.
I don't know how you do it, but I know what my own eyes witnessed. Twice. How do you do it?
I shake my head, continuing to back away from him. It's nothing. I'm no one. But when Roman realizes I'm gone, he will realize you have gone missing from the party. Believe me, it won't take him more than 2 minutes to put it together. He's going to turn you inside out for this.
Santiago chuckles. Andres would, I don't doubt it. But trust me, Dr. Doe, he is not going to find us anytime soon.
I could point out to him that it's only a matter of time before I'm found, thanks to my beloved distant aunt who can track anyone with her son's magical blood tattooed into their skin. Those flowers on my left forearm guarantee I will be found. But I'd so much rather see the look of surprise on his face when Roman kicks in this door and pulls his heart out through his throat.
So tell me, Dr. Doe,
Santiago says as he looks down at me, so casual and composed.
How does it work? A fluke? A glitch in your DNA? Or is it a curse?
I know my poker face slips, because as my heart drops into my stomach, a satisfied grin pulls on his lips.
Our entire species came about because of a curse,
Santiago says as he stands in the middle of the room. His eyes are fixed on me, his hands in his pockets, but no part of him seems relaxed. Every bit of him is danger.
King Cyrus played with nature, and the universe cursed him to crave the blood of his former kind because of it.
The universe? Was it really the universe? Or an exceptionally powerful curse weaver?
I've come across cursed lands where nothing grows, and there is a chill in the air.
He takes another step closer to me.
And I myself have witnessed Queen Savon die once. Cyrus forced immortality on her and cursed himself once again to lose her over and over.
Santiago bends at the waist, so we're eye to eye.
What did you do to deserve a curse, Juliet?
It never occurred to me that anyone who didn't know about the gifted would have any idea about curses, outside the ones King Cyrus brought about. This is the first time I've heard of others. Deserve? I ask, playing it off. Did I ask for it growing up as an orphan? Being beaten and abused by the adults who were supposed to take care of me? Was I asking for it as I starved and wondered if I was going to die from the cold? Does that sound deserving to you?
We all have sob stories,
He says calmly.
But we've all done horrible things, despite or because of those stories. You know what you did.
Yes, I know what I did. I was born to a mother who loved me enough to save my life by cursing me to evade death. He stares at me for a solid 30 seconds, as if he can read the truth out of my eyes. I swear I will give him nothing.
Is there a limit?
He finally asks.
Or can you just die death after death, endlessly?
You don't know what you're talking about, I say petulantly as I look away from him. I'm not sure how I'm finding my way out of this one. It's one thing to talk your way out of things when people really don't know what's going on, but Santiago was a witness. He's seen the truth. Twice.
But I know one man who will be very curious to help me uncover the truth of what you're dealing with,
he says, his words going quiet and low. I don't know what that means. I don't get 2 seconds to think about it, because there's a flash of steel and it rips through my heart. Death comes seconds later. Chapter 6. When I wake next, I'm somewhere different. From the rocking motion and the noise, I think it's a train. Santiago questions me again. When I don't give him the answers he wants, he stabs me through the heart. Next, I'm definitely on an airplane. He drills me about my ability to overcome death. He kills me again. When I wake once more and we're in a dark room with elegant curtains and it smells like spices, I realize I am staying out far, far longer than my normal 20-minute deaths. I think it's actually been hours in between each death. How is he doing it? Where the hell is he taking me? When I next wake, I'm alone in what I think is, again, a train car. I'm slumped in a seat, alone in this tiny space. With a pained groan, I sit up, my chest screaming in pain. I look out the window to find it's nighttime. I am, indeed, on a train. It races down the tracks, and it looks like we're going through a canyon. Steep mountain walls rise on either side, trees lining nearly every surface around me. There are patches of snow here and there, signs of the passing winter. Where the hell am I? I breathe out as I look for any signs, any billboards, or anything to give me any indication where I've been taken. I'm nowhere near Chicago anymore, not with these mountains. There's snow, so I haven't gone south. A train ride, a plane ride, and another train ride. Who knows what else in between? Keeping my feet silent, I go to the door, only to find it locked. I could break it, no question there. But what am I going to find on the other side? I press my ear against the door, my eyes sliding closed. It's mostly quiet. I hear the rattling of the train and little else. But then there are footsteps heading my direction. Not just one set, but two. I take 2 steps back, adrenaline and fight coiling in my blood. The moment the door slides open, I kick out with everything I have, connecting with a jaw. Santiago goes stumbling backward, falling into the man behind him. I jump over them both, stepping on a hand and then a face as I go. Fingers wrap around my ankle, and I fall flat to the ground. Curling around, I find Santiago gripping me with white knuckles. I coil a leg back, ready to crush his face in. But before I get the chance, the other man jumps. He grips me by the front of my dress and flips me over into the aisle of the train. A vampiric roar rips from my throat, and I feel my eyes flash red. I flip around, taking my hands straight for the man's throat, squeezing with everything I have. But his much larger hands grip the front of my dress, and he pulls the both of us to our feet. I rear my head back and crack my forehead into his nose. He drops me, and I catch myself with bent knees, whipping around to search for Santiago. Except he's there with a dagger in hand, and he plunges it into my chest. Lights out.
What are we going to do?
I feel so groggy. The edges of everything are fuzzy. My brain weighs 1,000,000 pounds. My hands feel tingly.
There is someone out there.
Santiago's voice floats through the fog in my brain.
It's not a coincidence our car died before we could get to the town. You're being paranoid,
a voice I don't recognize says.
But maybe it's for the best. This plan. Are you really feeling so confident to just walk up to the castle and hope he listens to us before he chops our head off for fun?
A different kind of cold starts spreading out over my skin at those few choice words. I try rolling. I try to bend a leg. Anything. I have to get out of here. But my blood feels like it's filled with cold molasses.
Why the hell did I call you if you're going to be this cautious?
Santiago asks, impatient and annoyed.
We need a plan,
the newcomer responds with annoyance.
We're not even supposed to be here. Neither of us is a royal. They could kill us for just setting foot in this town.
Town. Castle. My heart starts beating faster, burning through the molasses.
We need to move. If someone really is out there, all we need is 20 seconds of explanation,
Santiago says.
The second he realizes she can't truly die, we'll have his absolute, undivided attention. And we can finally get out from under that sad excuse of a royal,
the other man growls. So, not everyone in the House of Badillo is thrilled about Orlando's leadership.
You really think he'll make you a royal?
The other man asks doubtfully.
It's all about blood, and you can't change that.
They're my terms, Santiago says.
He'll just kill you if you tell him what you have, and you don't turn her over. You underestimate how desperate he is to get Savan back,
Santiago says. And all the blood drains from my face. Savan. I know that name. Castle. There's only one that's applicable to the vampire world. One eye peels open, revealing a ceiling that looks old and dusty. The other struggles to lift. What the hell has he done to me? It's bad enough I've died about a dozen times in the last, well, I don't know how long it's been, but he's obviously drugging me, so it takes me much longer than usual to wake from the dead. My medical brain can't help but start considering the long-term side effects I could be left with. There has to be some benefit to being a vampire, though. Surely this cursed blood can burn out whatever the drugs are doing to me. I take a deep breath as I feel my lungs begin to unfreeze, like tar beginning to dissolve out of them. My head lolls to the side, and I get a good view of where we are. It looks like a cottage, a really old one, and one that's probably been abandoned for a while. The windows are cracked, and moss is starting to grow in the corners. It's little more than one room and a kitchen by the front door. I'm lying on a dusty rug on the ground. Santiago and the other man stand in the kitchen arguing. The moonlight streaming through the windows gives me a pretty good idea it's long past midnight, whatever time zone I'm in now.
She's waking up,
Santiago points out.
Either grow some damn balls, or we need to kill her again.
They debate. Kill me, drag me to the castle doors, no biggie. But I hear something outside. Footsteps. They're quiet, nearly silent. One set is quietly joined by another. 2 people. I catch their scent just a second before the entire world explodes into glass. 2 figures erupt through the windows. Without 1 second of hesitation, Roman's fist pops into Santiago's face, knocking him flat to the ground. He's kneeling on his chest the next second, chaining Santiago's ankles and wrists. Sebastian headbutts the other man, who lets out an unearthly roar. He crashes back against the wall, and the entire cottage shudders. Sebastian's hand wraps around the man's throat, and he comes nose to nose with him, a snarling roar climbing up my ex-fiancé's throat. Roman throws another set of chains to Sebastian, who catches them out of the air. In a fraction of a second, he's wrapped the man. It all happens over the span of about 3 seconds. And now, both Roman and Sebastian have daggers pressed to my captors' chests. "Are you all right?" Roman asks, his brows furrowed over vivid blue eyes that find me in the dark. His chest heaves, the adrenaline radiating off of him. Drugged, I say stupidly, my brain still struggling to come out of the fog. What? Sebastian, what the hell are you doing here? Ending this man's pathetic excuse for a life, he says savagely, his voice that of a demon. And, with every ounce of humanity missing from his eyes, he sinks the dagger into the man's chest. Roman curses loudly. He wasn't ready for the man to die. He needs information. Sebastian yanks the blade out, and the man drops to the ground, dead weight, his skin instantly turning gray. Sebastian bends to wipe the blood from the blade on the man's sleeve. Santiago is yelling obscenities in English and Spanish. But he doesn't gain 1 inch of room with Roman on his chest and the blade pressed into his skin. A tiny bit of blood starts seeping into the fabric, a sign his skin has been punctured. Sebastian turns, his blazing red eyes fixed on me. And my heart does a wild thing as he stalks toward me. I scramble to pull myself into a sitting position, but my limbs are slow and stiff. Fear, relief, anxiety, anger, hatred, memories. They all pummel me as our eyes meet again for the first time in 2 months. Don't touch her, Roman warns in the darkest tone I've ever heard from him. But Sebastian doesn't heed him. He drops to his knees in front of me and grabs my wrist, pressing 2 fingers into my skin to feel my pulse. What did he dose you with? Sebastian asks, his tone deadly and urgent. I can smell it in your blood. I shake my head. I don't know. I feel kind of dull, sluggish. Desflurane or isoflurane, Sebastian guesses, his hand moving to my forehead. Maybe halothane. I push his hand away from me, my brows furrowing. I can't believe you're here, after all the shit you pulled. Actually, I can't believe Roman left your head on your shoulders. A temporary negotiation, Roman seethes. Now, you're going to answer my questions, and you'll give me the truth, or I'm going to cut your fingers off, one by one, he says as his attention returns to Santiago. Roman grips him by the front of his shirt and hauls him into a sitting position, his back leaning against the cabinets. Rotten hell, you ungrateful royal, Santiago says as he spits in Roman's face. Roman's eyes squeeze shut as he lets out a slow, controlled breath through his nostrils. He wipes the spit with the sleeve of his shoulder. His eyes are scarlet when he opens them again. He grabs Santiago's left hand and slices his thumb off in one clean cut. Santiago lets out a bellow that will surely wake the entire town. I might not remember you, but I'd guess you never were a very smart man, were you? Roman glowers. You may have gotten only 20 seconds of evidence, but you should know, when it comes to Juliet, neither one of us is very reasonable. So, you're going to answer my questions, aren't you? Santiago breathes hard, feral huffs, as he stares at Roman without saying a word. Why have you brought Juliet to Roter Himmel? My hands immediately feel icy when it's finally confirmed where I am. You know what she can do, Santiago says, not really a question. Sebastian's eyes flick over to me, and in them, I see an entire conversation. I never told him myself. I never admitted to the man I was going to marry that I can't die. But he's witnessed it with his own eyes. When he staked Roman, and I learned about my gift, the ability to die for people. And then he witnessed when I woke from death once again, just minutes later. I see it in his eyes. He knows the whole truth now, and somehow I know Roman had no choice but to tell Sebastian everything. I know what she can do, Roman says, his words low and dangerous.
Then I don't have to explain why I've brought her to Roter Himmel,
Santiago says between clenched teeth. Roman lops his index finger off. Santiago roars in agony again as the digit falls to the ground with a wet thud.
You really do. I ask you a question, you answer. That's how this works.
Santiago breathes hard through his nostrils, his eyes sliding over to where his 2 fingers are lying in a pool of blood.
King Cyrus will do anything to get Savan back. He's done it over and over, but over and over, he's always lost her to death. If what Juliet can do can be replicated, I know Cyrus would do anything to get his hands on it.
In 2 long steps, Sebastian crosses the cottage. He cocks a fist back, and it collides with Santiago's jaw. I hear a crack.
You were going to sell her to the king and let him experiment on her?
Sebastian seethes. His entire body vibrates, barely under control.
And you thought he'd make you a royal as a reward,
Roman states, evidence he overheard the earlier conversation.
Stranger things have happened in this world,
Santiago grinds out. Sebastian curses under his breath.
Idiot. The king would sooner make you his court's pet, just for the hell of it. Who have you contacted?
Roman breathes as he leans on the man a little harder, the tip of the blade digging just a tiny bit deeper into his chest.
Who else knows about this plan?
Just Isaiah, Santiago barks out, sounding panicked.
I had no reason to share the reward with anyone more than I had to, and now he's dead. Did anyone see you come into Roter Himmel?
Sebastian demands as he stares down at Santiago. The man pauses for just a second too long.
3 cars passed us on our way into the valley.
I think he's lying based on his hesitation, but we can't count on that. If anyone did see him and Isaiah enter Roter Himmel, we need to move. Soon.
Cyrus will have guards, spies watching the valley,
Sebastian says as he walks to the now broken windows and looks out.
This scumbag is lying, but it seems doubtful they would have entered without anyone knowing.
No one has come bursting through the doors yet, I point out. We are not exactly being quiet.
At least you picked a secluded spot,
Sebastian says. I don't know what the layout of the valley is, but we must not be too close to the castle, and whoever else lives here.
Does Orlando know just how much you resent him?
Roman asks. And I see Santiago's expression go slack. I see panic creep into his eyes.
I would imagine he would see your actions as treason,
Roman continues.
And I have a feeling everyone else in this valley would see it the same. But that isn't enough reason for me to kill you.
His blue eyes slide over to meet mine.
How many times, Juliet?
I know what he's asking. He's asking how many times Santiago killed me between when I was taken and now. I don't know why I hesitate. Santiago has done a bad thing to me. He literally murdered me 12 times. But I know Roman. His words, the one when he said he would throw himself in front of 1,000 stakes just so he wouldn't have to watch me die again, live deep inside of me now. I know the vengeance Roman will execute.
She's never going to tell you, and that's answer enough,
Sebastian says, proving that he does know me better than I wish he did. 12, I say, just to further unravel any small connection that still exists between us. There's nothing but darkness left in his eyes as Roman looks back at Santiago.
I just wish you could die more than one death,
he says darkly. He carves a line into Santiago's arm, and then a number, 2. Santiago's cries of pain and fear grow more frantic by the moment.
A death for a death.
Roman carves a number 3, and then a 4 into Santiago's flesh.
But even that would not satisfy my need for revenge.
Santiago is writhing, a chorus of yells and screams as Roman continues carving numbers into his skin. 5, 6, 7. Blood pours from Santiago's arm as Roman switches to the other arm.
Let this be the last lesson you'll ever learn,
Roman says, his tone stone cold as he carves an 8 and a 9.
Touching a woman out of greed?
10. 11.
Will be the last thing you ever do.
12. Santiago looks a nightmare. The number of deaths he caused me carved into his very skin, blood pouring down them.
May you burn in hell for your sins,
Roman says, and he plunges the dagger straight through Santiago's heart. His eyes flash wide for just a second, his mouth agape in the shape of a shocked O. He stares into Roman's savage, furious eyes. And then, the light dies in Santiago's eyes. His skin grays, and his body falls still. The room is silent for a few moments, the weight of death heavy in the air. Sebastian mutters a curse at Roman's savagery. Roman stands, and it's kind of amazing the way the entire atmosphere changes as he crosses the cottage and pulls me to my feet before wrapping his arms around me.
I'm sorry,
he breathes as he tucks his nose into my hair. There was nothing you could have done, I say as I cling to him, reveling in this feeling that's nearly indescribable. I feel safe. I feel calm. I feel warm and at ease, despite everything that's just happened. Chelsea is a bitch. She killed me because she was drooling all over you. Santiago saw her take me out and then watched me resurrect. Roman squeezes me tighter, as if he can absorb me and protect me from anything bad ever happening again. But it isn't the only feeling filling up the room. There's something different permeating the space. Betrayal and anger, and it draws my eyes upward. Sebastian stares at Roman and me, clinging to each other like the last breath we'll ever take.
You still expect me to believe there was nothing going on between the two of you?
He says, his tone cold but exhausted.
So I get to cut your tongue out now?
Roman growls as he turns, glaring Sebastian down, taking one menacing step toward him. Sebastian holds up 2 hands, conceding.
It doesn't matter anymore,
he says, but it sounds like he's talking to himself.
I know what I did. I know I broke everything. Juliet is free to move on down the line.
Hot, angry tears sting the backs of my eyes. My throat feels tight. My hands curl into fists. The curses flow freely as Roman steps forward. His fist connects with Sebastian's jaw, snapping his head backward. Sebastian staggers backward, catching himself against the kitchen cabinets. His eyes flash red, black veins sprouting over his skin. But he doesn't fight back.
You don't get to say a damn word,
Roman seethes. His shoulders rise and fall as he breathes hard, vengeance filling his entire body.
This is your last warning. One more thing, one more jab. You make her feel even an ounce of guilt, and I will take your tongue, then pull your insides out.
Sebastian's eyes hover on the wall, refusing or unable to meet my gaze. I feel like a damn mess. I never, ever expected to stand in a room with the two of them together again. I honestly thought Roman would rip Sebastian apart the moment they laid eyes on each other. Whatever this agreement was, Roman must have been truly desperate. But being in this room, it brings too many emotions to the surface. I loved Sebastian. I will never deny it. The things I felt for him. Sebastian did horrible things in the name of love for me. But I did some questionable things for him too. I'm not entirely innocent. I gave Sebastian my whole heart. He understands part of me in a way no one else on this planet ever will. But he betrayed me. He tried to control me. He treated me like I was an object and not an independent person capable of making her own decisions. The things he broke inside of me may never heal. The bridge between us has eroded, decayed, and tumbled into a cavern as deep as the ocean. And Roman. I still have no idea how to define what I feel for Roman. It feels deep and mysterious and solid. And we still don't know exactly what we are to each other. And now, we're all three together in the same room. I feel like I need to explain. I feel like I have to defend myself. I feel the need to throw myself between the two of them. But I know I don't owe anyone but myself anything. How did you find me? I finally ask. Getting the words out feels nearly impossible, but I force them around the knots in my throat. I can't dwell in my emotions, or they're going to consume me whole. Roman's eyes darken as he looks back at Sebastian. Sebastian's eyes don't leave the wall when he speaks. I had Sigrid's phone tapped. Anytime she said your name, it came through to me. It's my turn to let a curse slip. Where does it end? First, I learned Sebastian had been tracking my location on my phone. Then he literally paid his bodyguard to follow me at all times. And now this? 2 months after our relationship went down in flames? I can't find any words. Silently, I just shake my head. Sigrid was coordinating with Roman on your location. Sebastian moves on when I don't have anything to say to him. Her gift never fails, but you kept glitching out. Every time you died. Roman puts the truth together. He stands there, slightly between Sebastian and me, his arms folded over his chest. He kind of looks like a ticking bomb, just waiting to go off. Sebastian nods. You'd disappear for a few hours, then reappear hundreds of miles away. When I realized what was happening, when I considered where that asshole might be taking you. He shakes his head, the rage building in him again. I was closer. Roman and I struck a deal. I would get to you first and make sure they didn't execute their plan. I'd keep you away from the king until Roman caught up. And, in exchange, I had to promise not to kill him, Roman says resentfully. Not yet. We both deserve some closure, Sebastian says darkly. His eyes slide from Roman over to me, and I should be relieved that I see regret in his eyes, but it's too late. I don't need closure. I got it when I gave Sebastian his ring back, before I ever found out he was poisoning the gifted and vampires of Chicago. Where were you? I ask, ignoring all the details that make this emotionally complicated. You said you were closer? Rome, he answers, his voice sounding slightly hoarse. And something fractures a little more in my heart, which I didn't think was possible. It was one of the conversations we had early in our relationship. We both said we wanted to travel to Rome, and we made a deal that we'd go there together someday. He and I ended, and he left the country to go to the place we were supposed to visit together. What did Orlando say? I ask, moving on. When you realized I was gone, and so was Santiago. He doesn't know, Roman says, letting out a hard breath. The whole royal situation is complicated. I didn't say anything to Orlando because I wasn't going to give an explanation about why Santiago would take you. I'm going to have to come up with some justification for why I disappeared for a few days. My fingers lace into my hair, my stress levels rising. Too much. I can feel it creeping up inside me like it did before I broke down and called Sebastian begging for help. I have my limits. I've learned that now, and I'm getting dangerously close to them. I swear, Juliet, I won't let Orlando do anything to Chicago, Roman says, as if sensing where my head is. It's you I'm worried about, I explode, not caring that my former fiancé is hearing every word I say. I know everyone doesn't trust Orlando when he says he just wants to be reunited with you, but I can hear it in his voice. He really does miss Andres. He's a powerful man, Roman. I don't think he's just going to leave you alone and let you go back to your life in Chicago. Roman steps forward, taking my hands. His blue eyes bore into my own, conviction burning them bright. Do I seem like the kind of man to let someone make me do something I don't want to do? I let out a breath. It's not in relief. It feels a little defeated. No, I answer, but I still don't know if Roman will have any choice when it comes down to it. I will work this all out, Roman says, hooking a finger under my chin and lifting it so I have to look into his eyes and see the promise there. I trust him. I believe him, but I'm still scared.
"This is all very heart-killingly sweet," Sebastian says, his tone tight. "But we need to make a plan. Every second we stay in Roter Himmel is a risk."
My eyes lift to his, and Roman pivots, looking out the broken windows.
"Our best bet is during the day. The town should be quiet then. I think we take off along the mountains, not the road. We're less likely to be spotted that way."
Good thing I wore my hiking gear, I snort. Both sets of eyes slide down the length of me. I'm still wearing my red dress, though it's stained with an impressive amount of blood and ripped in more than one place. My feet are bare, and I wonder where exactly I lost my shoes between Chicago and Austria.
"I could raid one of the houses, get you something to wear,"
Roman says, dead serious. I roll my eyes. I'll be fine. I'm a damn vampire. I think I'll survive a little barefoot hiking. Sebastian's eyes linger on my feet, and I hate that it's genuine concern on his face. He doesn't like the idea of me walking barefoot. What time is it, anyway? I ask, walking to the window and looking out for the first time. And my breath is taken away. The mountains around us are spectacular. They're massive and completely encircle us. There's a huge lake pushed up against one side, one single road stretching along the side of it and then disappearing into a canyon. This cottage is only 100 yards from the road. But down the road, about a mile or so, I see dozens of houses. I'd honestly expect more luxury from the king's royal court members, but they're just normal looking. But there, in the middle of the actual town, the road turns. It runs up the hill, and it disappears into the gates that surround the castle. A castle? I've never seen one in my life. You see them in movies, on TV, but seeing this in real life? I feel something tug inside me, and I almost feel emotional. There's history here. There's a darkness in that castle, weight that covers the entire valley. This is where my kind come from, where we all originate. Me, both the men in this building with me, my father, my best friends back in Chicago. We're all here, all what we are, because of the person who resides in those walls. A flash of dim headlights sends us all ducking for a moment. Silently, we watch as a car rolls down the road. It's nice, and one of those brands you've never even heard of because they're so rare. There's this feeling as it gets closer, as if a cloud of dangerous mist is billowing out in front of the vehicle. The world feels older as it approaches, more sinister, far more precarious. All three of us watch in silence, tucked out of view as much as possible. The car rolls closer and closer. We see a woman driving the vehicle. She looks deadly and stoic. And then, in the back seat, we see a man. He's looking down, as if reviewing documents or even looking at a phone. But even doing something so mundane, the power radiates off of him. He has dark hair, every strand perfectly placed. Even from here, I can see his intense, dark green eyes. His lips are pursed, focused, the top slightly fuller than the bottom. He's beautiful in the deadliest way. And with the aura of peril that radiates off the man, I know exactly who he is. King Cyrus. In just a span of 2 seconds, the man drives by, unaware of two non-royals here in his sinister town, literally named Red Heaven. The vehicle continues down the road, headed into the town, the three of us utterly frozen and silent. The king of vampires, the creator. Holy shit! The words slip out of my lips in a terrified, reverent whisper. Now it's Roman's turn to let out a curse. Almost without thought, he grabs me, enveloping me in his embrace, protecting me, as we watch that vehicle bearing the king roll up the road and then disappear behind the gates of the castle. Think you've ever met him? I ask. Roman simply shakes his head in unknowing, still staring at the castle.
Seems everyone who ends up in Chicago is good at keeping secrets,
Sebastian says.
Who would have known our very own Roman DeLuca was actually Andres Badillo, a true blue royal?
You caught him up on the details then? I ask, as Roman and I release each other.
He needs to understand the weight of the situation,
Roman says. So now that we've seen the king, there are 2 bodies on the floor, and there's enough tension in the air to choke us all. What's the plan? I ask, because I can't help but revert to my natural ways. Are we letting Sebastian just walk after everything that happened?
I'm coming back to Chicago with you two,
Sebastian answers, without giving Roman a second to respond. I arch an eyebrow at him. You realize the entire population of the city hates you now, right? You don't poison the masses over one woman and just expect everyone to forgive you.
I don't give a damn what they all think of me,
he says. I feel his eyes on me, but I refuse to look at him.
But you were just kidnapped by someone from a royal house. You've got the most powerful gift a gifted can have, and a curse to enhance it. There's a royal with unclear intentions in the city you're about to return to. I'm not letting you go back to Chicago with this indecisive asshole as your only protection.
Hell no, I grind out, taking a step toward him to put an end to this, but Roman catches my wrist, holding me back. After all the bullshit you put me through, you're not coming anywhere near me again after we're out of this country. We look at each other for several heated seconds. I'm breathing so hard. My adrenaline is kicking in. I'm ready to fight and punch and kick and scream. Sebastian has always looked like he's 2 seconds away from erupting into a storm of wrath, and right now is no different. Do you know that the superintendent of police investigated me for weeks? I ask, my voice shaking with rage. She thought I murdered you. Roman spent days in prison when they found your blood in his apartment. You've wrecked way too much, Sebastian.
And I will find a way to atone for my sins,
he says, his voice quieter and lower than I expected with how he's trembling.
I swear, somehow I will make it right.
You will never win me back, I say, the absolute confidence of finality in my tone. There is nothing you could do to make me want you back. You broke. My voice falters, fracturing just a little, and something stings the back of my eyes. You broke me, Sebastian. You broke us, and there is no putting us back together. I watch Sebastian swallow, his Adam's apple bobbing up and down.
I know you will never forgive what I did. I know there is something broken in me, because I don't know what I would have done differently if I could go back. But somehow, I have to make it right, Juliet.
I let out a hard breath, and I feel the energy leaking from me. I deflate. I lean back without meaning to, but Roman wraps a hand around my waist, pulling me against him with physical support. It feels like there should be a million more things to say. What happened was enormous. Surely we could still argue over all that's happened for ages. But I'm too tired. I'm drained. My nerves and emotions are shot. Can we just not talk anymore? I say out loud, though I don't mean to. I can't anymore. We have a few hours until the sun comes up. I think we all need to give ourselves an emotional timeout until then. There are 3 strong personalities in this room. My request shouldn't work, but silence is the answer I get from the both of them. Sebastian slides down the wall next to one of the dead men. He sits with his forearms braced on his knees, and he stares at the ground, deep in thought. Roman walks to the window, scanning the surroundings. He's still in security mode, even though he's halfway across the world from his job. So I walk back to the rug on the floor. I'm not physically tired. After dying and being knocked out for so many hours over the last few days, I should be well rested. But I'm exhausted. I lay with my back facing the cottage, tucked up against the wall. And the rest of the night passes in perfect silence.